Chapter 1512. Wang Ling's purpose in using the strands of hair to lock onto 9 palace star brilliance and devil spirits' bodies wasn't just for the ultimate goal. It was also to be able to properly set up the one-click cleanup spell trap. He had predicted that 9 palace star brilliance and devil spirit would probably plan to escape. Since they were going to escape, they would definitely release a certain degree of interference. So it wasn't too strange for them to voluntarily release ghosts that were bound to them. Thus, the moment Wang Ling locked onto 9 palace star brilliance's body, she had already lost. At that moment, Wang Ling had also set up the one-click cleanup spell trap on all the strands of hair, and it was a linked mechanism. As long as one of the ghosts released at the same time was destroyed, the rest would suffer the same damage. It was indeed very troublesome for Wang Ling to capture 10,000 ghosts wandering around Sun Island at the same time, mainly because he was worried that he would make too much noise and hurt the innocent. But it was different now. With such a mechanism of consecutive sitting, Wang Ling only needed to crush one ghost, and the rest would follow suit. And so, the moment the 10,000 ghosts disappeared at the same time, 9 palace star brilliance and devil spirit were both extremely shocked. Was she still AF *** king human? 9 palace star brilliance's face twitched, and she involuntarily swallowed a mouthful of spittle in her throat. She was actually hiding in that rice-sized magic artifact. Using the king's eye to track her, Wang Ling quickly locked onto the magic artifact the other party had used to escape. It looked like a grain of rice, but Wang Ling didn't think it was a magic artifact from Earth. He held back and did not immediately proceed with the next step of the suppression of the 9 palace starlight. Instead, he wanted to see where she would escape to next. It was obvious that it would be very difficult for 9 palace star brilliance to be able to gather so many ghosts and merge them into one without a backer behind the scenes. Furthermore, Wang Ling had a feeling. He felt that 9 palace star brilliance's aura was strange, despite the existence of devil spirit in her body. But Wang Ling could clearly distinguish between the auras of humans and ghosts. He found it strange, because he sensed a third aura flowing through 9 palace star brilliance's body. What on earth was it? Following 9 palace star brilliance all the way to the edge of Sun Island's golden coast. Then, the magic artifact that was the size of a grain of rice suddenly plunged into the beach. The entire process was so fast that ordinary people would not be able to see it with their naked eyes. Wang Ling had never expected the Star Zhaixing Group's base to actually be hidden under the golden beach of Sun Island. After following them in depth, Wang Ling was surprised to discover something. It turned out that under the golden beach, there was another hidden building that resembled an underground city. If Sun Island was compared to a poached egg, then the city under the golden beach was the yolk of this poached egg. It was tightly wrapped inside, and it was buried very deeply. Using the king's eye to track it, Wang Ling discovered some alien words that he had never seen before. Wang Ling was even more stunned by this. Wang Ming's purpose on the island this time was in fact to track down the DNA of the Silverhorn alien who had attacked Wei Ji and Jiang Yingying back then. How did the Star Pluckers get involved with an extraterrestrial civilization? It can't be, right? It can't be so coincidental, right? Just as Wang Ling was sighing over how small the world was, in the Star Pluckers' Golden City, which was connected to the Golden Beach, a tunnel leading to the depths of the ocean caught Wang Ling's attention. Wang Ling used the king's eye to track it from afar. Only then did he discover that there was something fishy about the depths of the ocean. It turned out to be a well-constructed underwater base. It was just like the Ultraman base that Wang Ling had seen in special films when he was a child. It was just that it was built completely under the ocean. It was surrounded by a sturdy defensive barrier which was densely covered in alien words. Given current human cultivator technology, it would be very difficult to break through this level of alien barrier. Of course, no matter how advanced this barrier was, it would only take a snap of Wang Ling's fingers to break it. But after thinking about it, Wang Ling decided not to make a move first. This was a very crucial discovery, because this underwater base looked very much like a secret alien military base. It was really too frightening. Such a colossus could actually be built right under the nose of a country, without anyone knowing. This was something that no country's government would ever allow to happen. The Star Pluckers' establishment of China was a huge risk, and was most likely a premeditated plan. If this matter was exposed, it would be the biggest scandal the entire Sun Island would face. Wang Ling switched the king's eyes free exploration perspective back to 9 Palace Star Brilliance. He saw that 9 Palace Star Brilliance and Devil Spirit had already driven their magic artifacts into the Star Pluckers' core base in the Golden City below. Everything was as Wang Ling had expected. As expected, the Star Pluckers were colluding with an alien civilization. In addition to human cultivators, there was also a kind of silver-skinned creature with tentacles on its head in the Star Pluckers' core base. And now he finally understood. The silver-horned person they had seen earlier was in fact an evolved version of this silver-skinned alien creature. The silver-skinned people had appeared on Earth a long time ago. They had a very powerful disguise which allowed them to change their skin like a chameleon. Furthermore, they only needed to provide a photo. Wang Ling had personally seen a silver-skinned person stare at a photo of a human for a few seconds. And then, like a kaleidoscope, there was an astonishing change in its body. It completely transformed into the human in the photo. In the core base, there was a place called the Human Learning Research Institute that attracted Wang Ling's special attention. After these silver-skinned people used the photo to transform into the person in the photo, they would also learn the culture of human cultivators to better integrate into society. They learned languages, various languages, played games, watched cartoons, and even learned how to do live streams and carry girls. Although their mobile game skills were very bad at the beginning, the silver-skinned people learned very quickly. They were also growing at a rapid pace. In the mobile MOBA game League of Kings, for example, it only took an average of 1 week for a silver-skinned person to go from crazily sending heads to League of Kings. Wang Ling couldn't help but sigh with emotion. It turned out that sometimes the teammates who looked like they were screwed over weren't necessarily primary school students when they played games. It was also possible that they were aliens who mingled in human society and were trying to adapt to human life. In the Human Learning Research Institute, the silver-skinned people had to undergo systematic training before they could enter human society. The people who ran these courses were all genuine humans, and they were all members of the Star Pluckers. Wang Ling speculated that the Star Pluckers on Sun Island might have some kind of deal with the silver-skinned people. The interesting thing was that the silver-skinned people were even able to learn something as trivial as eating and drinking under the tutelage of the Star Pluckers. Everyone, today we're going to learn the right way to drink soft drinks. A very sturdy man stood in front of the lectern. There were 30 silver-skinned people sitting at desks in the classroom, and on each desk was a can of Coke. This thing is commonly known as Fat Otaku Coke. When you drink it, you have to do what I did. Gently pull open the ring of the can, and then drink it down like this. After the man finished drinking it, the carbonated drink washed through his stomach and intestines, causing him to burp. He laughed loudly. It's normal to burp after drinking it like this. You don't need to panic. Other than carbonated drinks, there's also beer, which causes hiccups after drinking. But the alcohol lesson is a little more complicated. Given that students in other classes are already having sex after drinking, we'll split the alcohol homework into different classes. Wang Ling suddenly felt that these silver-skinned people were actually pretty interesting. In order to integrate into human society, they had deliberately learned human knowledge. In today's society where knowledge is power, even aliens who came to Earth couldn't avoid learning. But in Wang Ling's view, these silver-skinned people actually had a long way to go before they could learn. When they came into contact with human mathematics, Chinese language, physics and chemistry, and so on, they might collapse even more. But the silver-skinned people grew up very quickly, and were also able to infer many things from one instance. This made Wang Ling feel that he had to be on guard against these alien creatures. After all, the undersea military base connected to the Star Pluckers' underground Golden City was the work of these silver-skinned people. They combined the inherent knowledge in their minds and studied the laws of Earth to refine them over and over again through the collision of knowledge. In the end, it was possible to obtain knowledge that could break through modern attempts and thus unlock unknown technology. Now, Wang Ling seemed to understand a little why Peng Shiren had chosen the silver-skinned people as a target for evolution. The speed at which these silver-skinned people grew up was indeed terrifying. If they could evolve into silver-horn people, their growth would probably be even more astonishing. We have to go. At that moment, Starlight Kyuka left his rice-sized escape magic artifact and appeared in the core base. The boss of the Star Pluckers appeared in the core base. He was a muscular, white-bearded man who was as sturdy as a small mountain. His name was Chiechiohu, and he was the current boss of the Star Pluckers as well as Starlight Kyuka's father. Starlight, what on earth happened? Why are you so flustered? Chiechiohu didn't understand. It had been Chiechiohu's idea to combine a human body and a ghost for the first time. He had experimented on his daughter, Starlight Kyuka, and the results were very good. Moving into the Gyogong family had actually been Chiechiohu's own plan. Chiechiohu believed that the Gyogong family was the only one on Sun Island who had the ability to pose a substantial threat to the Star Pluckers. If he could smoothly use his daughter to annex the Gyogong family, then dominating Sun Island was just around the corner. All that was left was to use the ability of the Hair Demon Spirit in Starlight Kyuka to control 100,000 Een soldiers, and gradually conquer the whole world. Chiechiohu had this ambition. And to support this ambition, he had to have formidable strength. Wang Ling observed Chiechiohu's fighting strength. He actually wasn't too strong. He had about half of Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's fighting strength. If Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's fighting strength could be described as SOSO by human cultivators' standards, then Chiechiohu was SSO among the SSO. But there was something worthy of Wang Ling's attention. While Chiechiohu wasn't very strong, the silver-skinned man standing next to him was an expert. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was already a true venerated, and was about to become a venerated immortal. But this silver-skinned man actually had the fighting strength of 10 grenade-throwing Senior Immortals. A whole 10 grenade-throwing Senior Immortals. Wang Ling scared in his heart. Father, look. At that moment, Starlight Kyuka let down his hair to reveal 2 pitiful bald spots on the top of his head. This is... Chiechiohu was stupefied. He was well aware that his daughter's situation was different from other people's. Other people might have gone bald and become stronger. But his daughter's situation was the opposite. Baldness meant the loss of ghosts. Looking at the damage on the top of his head, his daughter had lost at least 10,000 ghosts. Chiechiohu was instantly a little incredulous. What the hell is going on? Why are there so many losses? It's Queen Wave, Starlight Kyuka said. For a moment, she felt that it would be hard for her to explain clearly to her father about that terrifying Queen Wave. Now she was thinking the same thing as Devil Spirit. Apart from running, there was no other way. Escape from Earth, then go to another planet and start a new life. This was what Starlight Kyuka was currently thinking about. Starlight, calm down. Our grand plan is being carried out steadily. Very soon, we'll unify the entire Earth. As your father, I won't allow you to think of such a useless thing. Chiechiohu felt that Starlight Kyuka must have been under too much pressure recently. Maybe she was hallucinating. Wasn't it normal for people to lose hair when they were under high mental stress? For example, that author Kushwan who had been accused of plagiarism a while ago. It was said that his hair was about to fall out. Chiechiohu had already investigated the overall level of cultivators on Earth long ago. How could there be such a strong person? Father, what I said is true. Starlight Kyuka felt that she couldn't explain herself. Chiechiohu still shook his head. I don't believe you, unless that Queen Wave you mentioned appears in front of me right now. At that moment, Wang Ling, who was observing everything through the king's eye, tilted his neck. He had never heard such a strange request. But given the gap in strength, Wang Ling didn't directly show himself, and just used the king's eye to summon a small clone. The small clone's face couldn't be seen clearly. It was just a vague outline. But the moment this outline appeared, Starlight Kyuka, who had already been tortured twice, recognized it at a glance. She was scared out of her wits on the spot. It's him. He's Queen Wave. Don't be afraid, daughter. Father is here. Chiechiohu sneered. Then, facing Wang Ling's virtual body, he exerted force from his feet and waist at the same time, and threw a palm from a distance. Like an air cannon, the palm made an explosive sound as it rushed toward Wang Ling's small clone and accurately landed on Wang Ling's body. Then the small clone wasn't hurt at all. For a moment, Wang Ling suddenly thought of a phrase that had recently become very popular. That was scraping. Chapter 1513. The small clone in front of him had about a trillionth of Wang Ling's strength. The main thing was that Wang Ling was worried that the main body wouldn't be able to control its power well. It could directly turn a person into tofu pudding. Otherwise, it wouldn't have used this method to test the waters. The small clone. It was just a small clone. In Wang Ling's view, it was relatively weak in all aspects. Based on the clone's level, the real clone was something like Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch. It was the highest level among the clones that Wang Ling had created so far. After the real clone, the clones were ranked. They were the normal clone, the big clone, and finally the small clone. The levels of the clones were different. There was also a huge difference in the actual battle strength that each clone possessed. The small clone was the weakest, yes. But Wang Ling hadn't expected it to be the weakest. The other party's damage to the small clone had actually only been scraping sand. And this little bit of damage was insignificant. Given the small clone's self-healing ability, it could repair itself in the blink of an eye. Thus, this level of spirit energy was completely negligible to Wang Ling. When his attack failed, Chihu's first reaction was disbelief. After a brief daze, he immediately condensed the metal in the nearby space. Pieces of fish scale-like armor formed in front of his eyes and whizzed toward Wang Ling's small clone. It had to be said that Chihu was an outstanding cultivator, with a metal spirit root. This was a method of attacking by extracting rare metals from the nearby space. If you hadn't cultivated this magic to the acme of perfection, it would have been very difficult to do. The condensed pieces of golden metal scales cut through the air with an ear-piercing screech. Boom. The moment they collided with the small clone, a curtain of smoke rose up in front of them. Success. Chihu withdrew the ominous glint in his eyes. This was an original move of the golden scale meat mincing machine. It was mainly inspired by web authors who liked to drag out their updates. The moment the move was launched, the metal elements in the nearby space would quickly condense and turn into sharp, scale-like blades. Hundreds of thousands of fish scales would cut the target they had chosen together. In this storm of blades, it wouldn't last more than a few seconds. The body would turn into diced meat for dumplings. In the smoke, Wang Ling's little clone patted the dust off its body. The so-called law of smoke and no harm was once again reflected at this moment. Akinoshohu was an expert, but he was nothing compared to Wang Ling's little clone. The silhouette of the clone was not as tall as the main body. It looked to be about the size of a 10-year-old child, but the deterrence it emitted was astonishing. The clone raised his hand, and the smoke in the area was completely swept away. The golden scale meat mincing machine just now had no effect on the clone at all. He walked step by step towards Akano Chioku. His footsteps were silent. But here, everyone's hearts seemed to be ringing like a great Dao bell. Starlight Jiogong, Chihu, and that silver-skinned human king, who was standing to the side and had the battle strength of 10 grenade-throwing senior immortals, were scared witless. Monster! What kind of monster is this? Chihu shouted in fear. His unique skill was completely ineffective. This was something that Akano Chioku did not expect. At that moment, in the main hall of Golden City, Akano Chiohu, Starlight Jiogong, and that silver-skinned human king with the battle strength of 10 thunders. Under the small clone's footsteps, they quickly retreated. The trembling was too strong. The small clone hadn't even made a move yet. Just by suppressing them with its aura, the three of them were already scared out of their wits. It just took a light step forward. The chi and blood in their chests were already overflowing, and they all suffered internal injuries. With a wah sound, they spat out blood in unison. No, they had to resist. They had to run. If they didn't, they would die. At the same time, all three of them thought of running. Night of 100 Ghosts. Starlight Jiogong shouted at that moment. Helpless, Starlight Jiogong could only pull out a tuft of his hair. With a gentle blow, the shrill screams of many wandering souls and vengeful ghosts immediately rang out in the main hall. Night of 100 Ghosts. In a short period of time, he could summon over 100 powerful ghosts to control. It was a little similar to Gao Tianming from number 1 Devil Subduing High, who could control over 100 puppets. It was just that Night of 100 Ghosts wasn't so complicated, and it was an instant spell, so it was still disruptive. For other cultivators in particular, it might be very difficult to deal with. But now, it was Wang Ling's small clone who was standing here. The clone didn't care about this kind of method at all. The clone gently raised its hand. The movement of the hand was clearly extremely lazy and slow, but it directly grabbed one of the ghosts that was scurrying around in the air. Then, with a bang, it crushed the haunted house's head on the spot. The spell trap set up by the main body was also beneficial to the clone. The one-click cleanup effect was triggered, and over 100 wandering ghosts were instantly turned to ashes. Starlight Jiugong seemed to have expected this result. She actually didn't know how the little monster in front of her had done it. But the moment she saw it with her own eyes, Starlight Jiugong's already bald scalp felt a little numb. When Starlight Jiugong calmed down, she was stunned to find that her father and that silver-skinned human king, who had been standing next to her, had actually run away. On the ground, Jie Qiuhu used his own way to leave Starlight Jiugong's last words. "Daughter, Dad will always love you. Love you, my ass." Abandoned by her biological father in an instant, Starlight Jiugong's face was full of despair. She even wondered if she really was Jie Qiuhu's biological daughter. "Is it okay for us to leave just like this?" Silver-Skin Human King asked worriedly, scepter in hand. This was a spatial magic artifact, warp warp warp. It had the ability to teleport short distances. With a light tap of the scepter, it could get them out of danger. That person wouldn't kill Starlight. If he really wanted to kill her, he would have done it long ago. Jie Qiuhu took out a disc magic artifact and brought up an image of the core hall. This image was projected in the air. He had wanted to see Starlight Jiugong's situation. In the end, the image showed that Starlight Jiugong had already fallen face down. She looked completely unconscious. The little monster, whose silhouette could only be seen clearly, slowly got up from the ground and abruptly looked in the direction of the monitor, as if it was looking at Jie Qiuhu affectionately. In the next moment, whether it was Jie Qiuhu or Silverskin Human King, the smiles on their faces completely disappeared, because in the image in the air, the little monster directly reached out towards them. A small palm directly penetrated through the screen and grabbed his head. Chapter 15:14. Are you a human or a ghost? The moment the little clone's hand touched Jie Qiuhu's head, the hair on the back of his neck instantly stood on end. He subconsciously shrank his neck and tried to break free. However, the little clone was too strong, and its small hand was like a suction cup that gripped Jie Qiuhu's entire head like a bowling ball. Then it lifted up. The little clone wasn't a complete body, and didn't have intelligence like Crispy Noodle's Dao monarchs. It was just a small fraction of Wang Ling's strength. Thus, the little clone didn't answer Jie Qiuhu's questions. He was an emotionless being. The strength in the little hand gradually increased. Jie Qiuhu felt as if the top of his head was being cut open. Don't use so much strength, it hurts." Jie Qiuhu gasped in pain. His whole body was convulsing, and the feeling of struggling before death made him feel powerless in the face of everything. At the same time, he realized something. This little monster in front of him was serious. The other party really did want to kill him. "Help me," Jie Qiuhu shouted weakly. As a cultivator with an outstanding metal spirit root, he had already completely metallized his head to increase the strength of his body. At that moment, Jie Qiuhu's entire body was coated with a layer of metal. But this level of physical strength still wasn't enough in the face of the little clone's strength. The little clone was emotionless and expressionless, and Jie Qiuhu couldn't even clearly see what it looked like. It only gave him a terrifying outline that pierced the depths of his soul. In the face of the little clone that was floating in front of him like a child or a demon, Jie Qiuhu instantly felt that the cultivation path he had been pursuing for thousands of years had been completely overturned in that moment. Even his worldview collapsed at the same time. Just as the little clone was about to crush Jie Qiuhu's head like a watermelon, next to him, Silverskin Human King finally couldn't take it anymore. He stretched out his hands and took out a very small magic artifact. Looking at it from the little clone's perspective, Wang Ling was stunned to see that it was actually a black top the size of a ping-pong ball. What was this? There was a puzzled look in his eyes. Somehow, he felt that this black top looked a little familiar. Just then, Wang Ling suddenly felt the little clone's vision blur. As the pitch-black top spun, Countless rays of light that were invisible to the naked eye were released. In his king's eye, it was an extremely distorted pitch-black ray of light that directly formed a vortex, as if it could suck in a person's mind. Before Wang Ling could react, there was a bang. The doppelganger was affected by the gyroscopic ray. Due to the imbalance in space, it was forced to disappear. Was this the power of the black stone? Wang Ling was surprised by this result. After all, they still had to avoid that monster's follow-up actions. To be on the safe side, it was better to hide and command first. In the dormitory, Wang Ling once again locked onto Akano Takaru and the Silver Skin Human King's positions. He didn't continue. Instead, he planned to cast a long line to catch a big fish and see what they would do next. As for the injury that the Silver Skin Human King had mentioned, actually, it wasn't an exaggeration. Wang Ling was indeed injured. After all, that black stone could emit a strange ray that limited his strength. After a while, Wang Ling would naturally have it. But just now, in those 2 seconds, because of that black top containing the power of the black stone, it had actually shaken off half a centimeter of Wang Ling's hair. Wang Ling was utterly stunned. So, this was what it felt like to be injured. Actually, Wang Ling was a little touched. After all, there weren't many people in this universe who could truly hurt him. He sighed emotionally in his heart. Wang Ling suddenly received a message from Jia Yin. It was almost midnight. At this time, the freshman welcoming party had already ended. Jia Yin's message made Wang Ling frown slightly. Wang Ling summarized Jia Yin's message. It said that several girls were walking toward his dormitory after the freshman welcoming party. Chapter 15:15. About 2 hours ago, Wang Ling had been battling wits and courage with the 9 Palace Starlight Group. Jiudao Wahai's freshman welcoming party had just begun. Students in China weren't allowed to drink, but at Jiudao Wahai's freshman welcoming party, there were still some low-alcohol mixed drinks. A lot of people came over to toast Lotus Sun and Wang Ming with evil intentions in an attempt to get them drunk. Welcome from afar. On behalf of Jiudao's Red Flame Association, I would like to extend a warm welcome to you. Let's drink first. I'll drink first as a sign of respect. A man who claimed to be from the 9 Paths and the Crimson Flame Society said. It wasn't until then that Lotus Sun realized that the internal structure of Jiudao was actually quite complicated. Although there were student unions in China, they were officially recognized organizations. It was strictly forbidden for students to form cliques in private. But in Sun Island's Jiudao High, this was actually allowed. It was said that this was to foster a sense of competition between students. Only with competition could there be progress. The gangs set up by these students were actually on the same level as the student union. If the overall score of a gang exceeded that of the student union in the annual comprehensive survey, the president of the student union would change hands. So in some sense, the current president of the student union of Jiudao Wahai was that Akano Usagi with 2 birds, Peacock Man and Sparrow Girl. He was actually quite a capable person. In the last few years, the overall score of the student union had been very high, even higher than the scores of the small student gangs put together. Some people said that before Akano Usagi graduated, his position as president of the student union was 100% secure. Jiudao Wahai now had the 7 biggest gangs known as the Rainbow 7 Gang. Red Flame Association, Orange Light Association, Yellow Regency Association, Green Hair Association, Blue Appearance Association, and Purple Maple Association. They all had the urge to bring down the student union. But because of the enormous influence of the student union, they were also afraid that their own student gangs would use too much force. On the contrary, it might even benefit other gangs. Just like that, the Rainbow Seven Suns gang formed a marvelous balance of power. Currently, Jiudao Wahai was led by Usagi and the student union, as well as the Rainbow Seven gang, which had a wonderful balance of power. It was also known as the Generation of Miracles by Jiudao and his students. Sister-in-law, don't you think this Jiuha High School is very interesting? Wang Ming picked up a goblet and smiled. This was the highest alcohol level cocktail in the restaurant. Wang Ming was an adult to begin with, and he could actually hold his liquor very well. Every time he encountered a research bottleneck, Wang Ming would in fact secretly drink erguotu in search of inspiration. Little brother fool is making fun of me again. Lotus Sun's face was as red as a tomato. I can call you Miss Rong, but every time I call you Miss Rong, it's Miss Rong. In their hearts, they would call out for sister-in-law 1,000 times. Wang Ming said, I've now completely figured it out. You and Ling Ling are together. It seems to be beneficial to me too. I don't have to worry about my research funding anymore. Lotus Sun. It could only mean that brother was still Brother Ming. With just a few words, he had rendered Lotus Sun speechless. Silently sighing, the girl could only blush and quickly change the topic. That Chive Sasaki is more capable than I thought. Indeed. Wang Ming nodded. Under Jioha's system, it's indeed not easy for him to stand firm. Speaking of ligation, then, has Miss Rong thought about ligation after you and Ling Ling get married? Of course, the point isn't ligation but marriage. Lotus Sun's face was still red as she pretended she hadn't heard anything and said to herself, Little brother fool, have you noticed that the alcoholic drinks here are pretty good? Indeed. Wang Ming nodded. Speaking of drinking, how many tables will you and Ling Ling have to set up for your wedding? After chatting with Wang Ming for a while, quite a number of Jiuhe gang members came over to propose a toast. The truth was that this bit of alcohol couldn't do anything to Wang Ming or Lotus Sun at all. As long as Wang Ming wanted to, he could use his brain waves to disperse the alcohol through his pores at any time. As for Lotus Sun, it was even easier. She had mysterious C's sword chi to protect her, and as soon as the alcohol entered her heart meridian, the protective effect of the sword chi would dilute the alcohol in her blood vessels. No matter how strong the alcohol was when it entered Lotus Sun's body, it would be like watered-down beer in KTV, and she wouldn't feel the alcohol at all. It was close to 11 o'clock, but Lotus Sun and Wang Ming were still on high alert. Their intuition told them that this freshman welcoming party wasn't as simple as it seemed. Sure enough, just as the party was about to end, Sparrow, the vice president of the student union, suddenly took the initiative to talk to Lotus Sunday. At that moment, the whole audience instantly fell silent. Apart from the light and melodious dance music, it was as if everyone had discussed it beforehand as they waited for the confrontation between Sparrow and Lotus Sunday. Hello, Lotus Chan. I've actually been meaning to ask you just now. Why didn't Holeng Sang come? He's not feeling well and is resting. Lotus Sun said with a vigilant look in her eyes. Oh, I see, that's really a pity. I heard that Holeng Sang is your school's famous mascot, and that number 60 High has won several big prizes because of it. That's the result of everyone's joint efforts. He who gets Holeng Sang wins the world. This saying can't be false, right? Sparrow laughed. Holeng Sang ranks very high on Jiudao's comprehensive national ranking list of high school students. What ranking is this? At that moment, Lotus Sun's eyes darkened as she suddenly felt like she had been tricked. Although the girl in front of her had a nickname Sparrow, it was clear that she was a man-eating sparrow. Wang Ling had been focused on dealing with 9 Palace Star Brilliance earlier. He had never thought that at the end of the freshman welcoming party, a group of strange girls would suddenly come looking for him. Jai Yin had been monitoring the door, but by the time she realized that something was wrong, it was already too late. That was because there were so many girls looking for Wang Ling. And not just girls, there were also quite a few boys. There was no way she could stop them on her own. The point was that she couldn't directly make a move. Jai Yin was well aware that she was now an assistant teacher at number 60 High, and represented number 60 High's image. If she rushed out just like that, wouldn't that be ruining her image? In the distance, Sparrow, who felt that her scheme had succeeded, sneered. Have you watched Wolf Toothless? Of course, it's an ancient power play from Huaxiao Nation. My parents watch it all the time, said Leek Sasaki. Don't you think that my current method is similar to this TV series? You mean that Qilin scholar Mei Xiaosu in the TV series? That's right. Sparrow nodded. I've already released the news. He who gets Holeng Sang wins the world. This way, a lot of people, men and women, will look for that Holeng Sang to cooperate with. In this way, won't the president and eldest Miss Sun have a chance to go on a date? As expected of Sparrow Sauce. But I still don't understand. What's with that ranking list of high school students? Why is Holeng Sang's name on it? That. Sparrow chuckled. Of course I added it in the black gold system. Do you really think that Hulang Sang is very strong? No way, no way. Chapter 15-16. The internal structure of 9 Paths in high school was more complicated than Lotus Sun had imagined. She looked at the endless stream of Rainbow 7 gang members pouring in the direction of Wang Ling's dormitory. Lotus Sun immediately regretted not investigating the matter earlier. It was very obvious that this was a conspiracy. Leek Sasaki had secured his position as president of the student union. Apart from his own efforts and strength, the deputy president under him, whose code name was Sparrow, was the real deal. This man-eating sparrow had drawn everyone's attention to Wang Ling. His real target was probably her. Recalling her grudge with Leek Sasaki back then, Lotus Sun couldn't help heaving a long sigh in her heart. It looked like it was time to find an opportunity to talk to Leek Sasaki. Are you going to look for that Leek Sasaki? It was as if Wang Ming had already predicted that Lotus Sun would make this decision. How did Brother Fool know? Lotus Sun was surprised. I can't read minds. Wang Ming smiled and pointed at his own head. It's just a mental deduction. Wang Ming smiled and pointed at his brain. After I input your temperament, personality, and other data on your 3 measurements, many lines instantly appeared in my mind, clearly listing all the possible decisions you could make, and then ranking them according to probability. And the first of these rankings is, go talk to Leek Sasaki. Lotus Sun took a deep breath. I understand the principle, but why do I need data on your 3 measurements? Of course, the more the better, and the more accurate the better. Don't worry, Miss Rong, your data isn't bad. It's just the right size. Saying this, Wang Ming stretched out his hand and grabbed a grapefruit from the fruit platter. No, this one's a little too big. He threw the grapefruit away, then picked up a mandarin. That's not right, this one's too small. Finally, he picked up a honey peach. That's about it. Lotus Sun. Realizing that he had been a little rude in front of his sister-in-law, Wang Ming hurriedly put down the fruit and coughed. It was just an example, Miss Rong, don't mind me. Actually, what I meant was that Miss Rong is very outstanding. Big breasts are actually useless. Look at that master of Shadow Stream. What happened to her? After hearing this, Lotus Sun still felt that something was wrong. But in the Immortal King cartoon, she's very strong. Wang Ming spread his hands. That's the Immortal King's daily life. What does it have to do with my Immortal King's daily life? Lotus Sun. There is no perfect work. There will always be regrets. I'll be fine as long as I improve next time. Wang Ming smiled bitterly and said, we digressed. By the way, what are you going to do with that Leek Sasaki? Do you need my help? There's no need. I can handle it myself. I'm still a little worried now, classmate Wang Ling. Lotus Sun frowned slightly. She released Mysterious Sea's sword Qi, and like a radar, it captured the students who were rushing in Wang Ling's direction after the freshman welcoming party, because of what the sparrow said. Now, the students of the Rainbow 7 Sons gang had sent a beautiful female representative to pull Wang Ling into their gang. The girl wasn't worried that Wang Ling would fall into her trap. He just felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. She put her hand to her forehead. Suddenly, he felt that he was hopeless. Classmate Wang Ling clearly hadn't responded to her at all. Everything was just a one-sided, unrequited love of hers. In the end, under such circumstances, she was actually jealous over such a thing. There were times when Lotus Sun realized that she was quite selfish. But when it came to relationships, she felt that being a little selfish wasn't wrong. Because this was a one-way street to begin with. Don't worry, sister-in-law, leave it to me. Wang Ming curled his lips. Because he knew Lotus Sun very well, the accuracy of the brain deduction technique was actually very high. Literature University, he could almost immediately divine what Lotus Sun was thinking. Brother Air, just call me Rong Rong. Okay, sister-in-law. Lotus Sun's face was boiling hot, and she had already given up on resisting. Wang Ming folded his arms and smiled at Lotus Sunday. Actually, it's very reasonable for me to call you sister-in-law. Lotus Sun. Wang Ming. Have you noticed, sister-in-law, you're gradually becoming like Wang Ling? At first, Lotus Sun didn't quite understand what he meant. But very quickly, She instantly understood. At that moment, the girl couldn't help laughing out loud. In the end, some people would live like the person they hated the most. And some people were like her. If they really lived like the person they liked, that wouldn't be too bad. In the dormitory, facing the menacing Jiudao High School students, Wang Ling pinched his fingers together and quickly figured out what was going on. The school system was different, and as a foreign school, Jiudao High School's internal environment was even more complicated. Wang Ling sighed in his heart. Competition was indeed a good thing. But with such a clique-forming system, the students became even more competitive with each other. As a result, it had become a source of school violence. And one of the main reasons why this group of people now had such deep faith in the backwave sang. It was still that national ranking list of high school students. In other countries, Wang Ling didn't know. But on Sun Island, it seemed that high school students especially believed in this thing. This was a list of overall strength, a little similar to the sword ranking list of the Sword King world, which would convert a student's various data into a comprehensive score, and finally present it on the list. The sparrow had done something to Wang Ling. On his way back to help Wang Ling out of trouble, Wang Ming had already started working on it. He had corrected Wang Ling's data. Wang Ling's data had returned to its normal ranking, but it was actually still very high. This was because Wang Ling had indeed represented number 60 high in a number of important competitions previously, and the key point was that number 60 high had coincidentally obtained excellent rankings. This had directly caused Wang Ling's luck value to greatly increase his overall score. The situation was more difficult than Wang Ming had imagined. But this wasn't a problem for Wang Ming. He knew that keeping a low profile had always been his little brother's principle. So in this situation, the best way Wang Ming could think of was to beat him at his own game. Backwave sang, is it? Wang Ming smiled. Hua Nation's culture was broad and profound, and he actually didn't really understand Sun Island students. For example, did Sparrow and Chive Sasaki know what backwave sang meant? All he did was move his eyeballs. Wang Ming immediately transmitted the data to the terminal through his brainwaves, and instantly hacked into the entire ranking list. It only took an instant. Wang Ming had changed the IDs of the hundreds of thousands of high school students on Sun Island's national ranking list to backwave sang. Furthermore, when everyone opened the ranking list. Chapter 15-17. Those people who keep saying that after cultivating for so long, they're still at the foundation establishment stage, should look at you just like me. I look at you with envy. The treasures that cultivators have accumulated for thousands of years, all the spells, artifacts, knowledge, and positioning, are like gifts specially prepared for you. Spirit medicine growth, killing monsters to level up, treasure hunting, cross-level combat. The fruits of cultivation civilization are unlocked layer by layer, and you can enjoy them to your heart's content. You can freely learn a spell, learn a routine, join a sect, and cultivate in a faraway place. Many of you have been reborn in a different cultivation world since the beginning. Many of you have entered your 40s in childhood, unperturbed by what the enemy is doing. What is the difference in levels? The gap between realms has been broken. Relying on the same routine, you can act like a hero in the same world or a different world. You have the power that we once dreamed of, the power to be the main character. Surge forward, young wave. It was a video that Wang Ming had created using a technique similar to a virtual live streamer. The middle-aged uncle in the video and the sexy and magnetic subwoofer had all been created by Wang Ming's techniques. Even so, the video of the speech still shocked the students of 9 Paths and high school who were watching. In the student union office, after the freshman orientation party, Peacock Man and Sparrow arrived. From the angle of the student union office, they could see the dormitory building. The two of them were about to enjoy the spectacle of the Rainbow Seven brothers besieging Wang Ling, but unexpectedly, after Peacock Man entered the ranking list, he was also forced to watch a video about cultivator Young Wave. What is this? After watching it, Peacock Man was so scared that he almost dropped his phone. There was a stunned expression on his face. Senior Sister Sparrow, something's wrong. All the names on this ranking list have become Young Wave. How can that be? Sparrow frowned. She was extremely confident in her hacking skills. What she had done just now made her feel even more invulnerable. She had never thought that her trick would be so easily cracked in such a short time. In order to stabilize Wang Ling's revised ranking, Sparrow had added a lot of defensive walls after hacking into the system. In the end, she had never thought that the code she had typed would actually be as brittle as paper. When Sparrow took the phone from Peacock's hand and saw the changes on the leaderboard, a look of disbelief appeared on her face. He quickly connected Peacock Man's phone to his computer. After typing frantically on the keyboard, Sparrow's expression changed from incredulity to fear. It can't be like this. In front of her screen, a virtual character wearing the same mask as the V for Vendetta occupied her entire computer screen. As one of the top experts in the hacker industry, Sparrow recognized the identity of this person at a glance. This was the top hacker in the world, Old V. He was also a senior in the industry that Sparrow had always admired. On the screen, Old V was holding an offering table with both hands, on which was a three-legged red sandalwood incense burner. Old V did not say anything. He only used the code below to communicate with the Sparrow in an encrypted manner. If it was translated into words, it would form the following sentences. I already have all your information. I advise you to stop. This is your final warning. Otherwise, I can only light incense for you. This was a language that only experienced hackers could understand. Sparrow looked at the code with a pale face. I understand, Senior. I won't do anything to Holang Sang again. Sparrow swiftly admitted defeat. She could offend anyone, and could even dig out anyone's heart. But this Old V was the only person she didn't want to offend. This was a top expert in the hacker circle. He was someone like Zhao Zilong who could freely enter and exit other countries' security networks, and who could escape unscathed. Almost every country's security network had traces of Old V, but no one could do anything about such an arrogant hacker. All these years, she had worked hard to learn technology so that she could get closer to her idol. Thus, Sparrow was thoroughly agitated. She tried to communicate through the code. Senior Old V, I've liked you for a long time. On the other side, Wang Ming never thought that Sparrow would actually be his fan. He smiled bitterly. He had chosen the codename Old V when he was young and immature. It was full of chinibyu. It was just like the WeChat ID that a lot of people chose when they were young and immature. If it wasn't for the fact that WeChat had given everyone a chance to change their ID a while ago, there might still be people who couldn't use it until now. Hearing Sparrow say that she liked him, Wang Ming instantly felt that this matter was easy to handle. Since she was a fan, Wang Ming naturally had his own way of dealing with fans. What? Do you want to be apprenticed to me? Wang Ming used his brainwaves to release the code as he replied. Can I? Sparrow was extremely excited. You can, but I want to test you. Then what do you want me to do, Senior? I want you to completely hide Holang Sang before he leaves. Hide him? Yes, he's the younger brother of a good friend of mine, and he doesn't like to be disturbed. Wang Ming said. You're actually causing trouble for me by doing this. Sorry, Senior, I didn't know he was related to you. Sparrow apologized sincerely. She really liked Old V. It wasn't just admiration. Sparrow felt that she could even give up everything, even her life, for Old V. The condition of being his disciple was very tempting, but what she hoped even more was to become Old V's lover. Senior, can I be your girlfriend? At that moment, Sparrow summoned up her courage again and said, Senior, you don't need to answer me now. I know, we can develop it step by step. We can also start with a master-disciple relationship. Wang Ming dropped his forehead into his hand. He was glad that he was communicating with Sparrow in code. Jiaying couldn't understand this stuff. Otherwise, he would definitely be skinned alive. Pretending to agree seemed like a good way to use Sparrow, but Wang Ming didn't think that much. This was too despicable. It was the behavior of a scumbag. He deeply loved Jai. Thus, he didn't intend to hide that he had a girlfriend. Wang Ming immediately replied, Sorry, I already have someone I like. Sparrow didn't reply for a very long time. After a few minutes or so, Sparrow said, It's fine, Senior. Then, let me be your disciple first. Wang Ming said. Confirm the task senior gave me again. I just need to hide Holang Sang. Right? Yes. Okay. After confirming, Sparrow turned off the internet. Hide Holang Sang. From Sparrow's point of view, this wasn't too difficult. No matter how deep he was hidden on the internet, it was better to directly take action. Just kill him. Chapter 15-18. Wang Ming had wanted to take advantage of Sparrow's worship of him and use her to settle the matter with Wang Ling. But what Wang Ming never expected was that the sparrow was actually a black-boned chicken at its core. Lacking an overall understanding of Sparrow, it seemed that Wang Ming had made a serious mistake in his judgment this time. More crucially, Wang Ming didn't realize how serious the problem was going to be. Wednesday, December 16th. In the wee hours of Jadahe High School, Sparrow hadn't slept all night. As the vice president of the student union, she had issued a curfew so that the students who had gathered around Wang Ling could quickly evacuate. She had been busy all night in the student union office, preparing a plan to completely hide Wang Ling. In a work manual for the vice president, Sparrow wrote down in detail the plan she was going to carry out to kill and dispose of the body. Now there were no longer any students around Ho Langsang. As long as she acted according to her plan, she could indeed kill Ho Langsang. In any case, it wouldn't be the first time. When she wrote the part about disposing of the body, Sparrow frowned. 50 grams of elementary corpse powder could quickly dissolve the body of a cultivator at the foundation establishment stage of a normal weight. Considering the possibility that Ho Langsang might be hiding his strength, Sparrow took out her trump card, Advanced Corpse Dissolving Powder. This kind of advanced corpse powder could quickly dissolve even a cultivator at the golden core stage. But there was a prerequisite for using corpse powder, and that was to ensure that the target was already dead. Otherwise, it would fall on a living person. The effect of corpse powder wasn't much different from that of baby talcum powder. Secondly, there was the problem of how to clean up any traces left after corpse powder was used. There were actually a lot of ways to examine corpses. Even if the corpse was cleaned up, if traces of corpse powder were detected, there was still a chance that there would be evidence left behind. For this reason, Sparrow had prepared an all-purpose cleaning reagent. She had taken it from a scumbag forensic doctor who had tried to do something to her. In the forensic work of the cultivation world, after every autopsy, the autopsy room had to be further sterilized and cleaned. This all-purpose cleaning reagent was a must for forensic doctors. To be on the safe side, after the corpse powder had completely dissolved the body, just one drop would be enough to completely clean up any traces left at the scene. He had prepared all the plans. Satisfied, Sparrow closed the workbook and smiled. Senior K, I'll be able to finish the task soon. At the same time, in the dormitory, Wang Ming, who was lying on the same bed as Jiayin, suddenly couldn't help trembling. Behave yourself. Why are you shaking? You've been rubbing up against me for so long just now, hooligan. The dormitory bed wasn't big, and Jiayin was squeezed into it by Wang Ming, half of her body pressed against the wall. Although she said she was disgusted, she did not push the man behind her away. We're an old married couple. What's there to be shy about? Wang Ming smiled. Then his body trembled again. I'm sorry, Factor. I don't know what's going on either. I just feel that something is wrong. Jiayin sat up. Did you make the wrong decision? In the past, when you were doing experiments, you would shiver like this whenever you felt that something was wrong. It's possible. Wang Ming was like a wolf dog as he abruptly circled Jiayin. My mistake was probably not taking care of you on the spot. Jiayin took a deep breath and glared at Wang Ming in annoyance. Heh, as expected, men were insatiable creatures. I'm telling you, behave yourself. If you don't behave yourself, don't even think about touching me in the future. With a red face, Jiayin wrapped the quilt around her like an egg roll, not leaving a single gap for Wang Ming. Wang Ming laughed and directly hugged Jiayin along with the quilt. Factor, I suddenly remembered, after what you said just now, I suddenly felt that there was something a little strange about that sparrow. You mean that vice president of the student union? Jiayin thought for a moment and said, Rong texted me just now, saying that this girl is very sinister and full of wicked ideas. I'm worried that she'll do something bad to Ling Ling. I think you're worrying for nothing. Your little brother is a soul formation cultivator. There's nothing to worry about. Actually, Wang Ming was mainly worried that something might happen to the sparrow. Before it had attacked him, it had still been a living sparrow, but after it had attacked, it wasn't necessarily the case. Shadowstream's example was still there. After all, those three brothers' corpses had yet to turn cold. But then again, when Wang Ming heard that Jai Yin still thought that Wang Ling was only at the soul formation stage, he couldn't help laughing. Factor. Actually, Ling Ling is stronger than you think. He's not just at the soul formation stage. What did you say? Jai Yin thought she had heard wrong, and was immediately stunned. 16 years old. Itinerant immortal? I don't want to lie to you, Factor. You can be a little bolder, said Wang Ming. This. Jai Yin was instantly so shocked that she couldn't speak coherently. Don't tell me he's a true immortal? Yes and no. Just take it that way. Wang Ming thought for a moment. Actually, it wasn't easy for Jai Yin to make this kind of deduction. After all, the highest level known on Earth was true immortal, and grenade-throwing senior immortal was just an exception. For many people, a 16-year-old true immortal was already impossible. But in the future, there would be a completely new upper limit for cultivators on Earth. After all, Earth had already completed its upgrade, and there was no need to worry about a lack of spirit chi. As long as it developed for another few thousand years, it would be the second domain of the gods. From your expression, don't tell me little brother's strength is at a realm that I don't know about. Yes. Wang Ming nodded. Jai Yin looked at this serious little face, and her heart was shaken once more. Looking at his expression, she knew that he wasn't lying to her. She was still very curious. So how strong is he? Statistically speaking, the combined strength of all the cultivators on Earth isn't enough to fight him, Wang Ming said. This was still a conservative way of putting it. He was well aware of his little brother's strength. It wasn't just Earth. If you counted the universe, it was the same. But the concept of the universe was too broad, and he felt that Jai Yin might not be able to digest it in a short time. Wang Ming held Jai Yin, whose mouth was wide open in shock, in his arms. Factor. Now you know why I'm so obsessed with Dao talisman seals, right? I know. Jai Yin trembled in his arms. You're sealing a nuclear bomb. At the same time, in the wee hours of the morning, Sparrow entered the boys' dormitory building with a toolbox. When the dormitory manager Auntie on duty saw Sparrow, she hurriedly greeted her warmly. Little Sparrow, it's all thanks to you this time. That bunch of students suddenly rushed over and almost broke the door. Your student union's words are still the best. Thank you for your hard work, Auntie. Sparrow smiled, then took out exquisite packages from her backpack and put them on the desk in the duty room. These are superior mutton cakes. Thank you for your hard work, Auntie. I hope you'll kindly accept them. The dormitory manager Auntie immediately laughed. Then I won't stand on ceremony. Our little Sparrow is still the most sensible. Seeing Sparrow looking around, she hurriedly asked, What are you looking for? A registration booklet, said Sparrow. I have to register when I enter the boys' dormitory, right? Oh, my little Sparrow, you're too polite. You must be here to visit your boyfriend, right? Don't stand on ceremony with Auntie. Auntie understands. Just go in. The dormitory manager Auntie smiled, already busily unwrapping the mutton cakes and eating them. Okay, thank you, Auntie. Sparrow smiled politely. When she turned around, her smile quickly dimmed. If this Auntie had asked her to register just now, she would have considered hiding this dormitory manager Auntie as well. At that moment, Sparrow turned her gaze to the elevator at the end of the first floor. And now the youngster she needed to hide was upstairs. Chapter 15-19. Room 704 of the boys' dormitory building in Judeo Area S. This was Wang Ling's current location. Wang Ming had gone to sleep with Jai Yin that night, leaving Wang Ling alone in this empty room. Actually, being alone wasn't much to Wang Ling. He was already used to it. In fact, the moment the sparrow entered the corridor, Wang Ling had already noticed its presence. There was no doubt that this girl was ruthless. She had actually interpreted Wang Ming's hiding as meaning to kill him. This kind of hardcore underworld style was very much like the Stars Plucker groups. It was just that Wang Ling still wasn't sure if Sparrow had anything to do with the Stars Plucker group. It was likely that he really wouldn't be able to rest tonight. Wang Ling sighed silently. He turned his gaze to the door, listening attentively to Sparrow and the footsteps of another group of people who were plotting against him. When Sparrow boarded the elevator, she had already sensed that something wasn't right. Although the elevator looked empty, however, the Sparrow was sure that there were two other people in this space. They had probably used some kind of magic treasure or spell to make themselves invisible, sneaking around in the boys' dormitory elevator in the middle of the night. Who the hell was this person? Were there still silly girls who would steal men's underwear nowadays? Sparrow pretended to be unperturbed. The moment she determined that there were other people in the elevator, she quickly pressed the button for the third floor. When the elevator reached the third floor, it opened. The Sparrow took a step forward. She then quickly used a stethoscope cable to connect a suction cup to the elevator button, and used her phone to implant a hacker search plugin. In the end, Sparrow detected something. About 10 seconds ago, before she had entered the elevator, someone had pressed the button for the 7th floor. Perhaps they had realized that Sparrow was about to enter the elevator, so they had immediately hidden themselves and then pressed the button. This could be verified by the elevator that was still going up. There was clearly no one in the elevator, but it was still going up. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be anyone else using the elevator at this time. And the most important thing was, this group of people had actually chosen to go to the 7th floor? Wasn't that Backlong Song's dormitory? Could it be that the Rainbow Seven Suns gang had secretly snuck in? The Sparrow felt that it was possible. After using a few seconds to check the buttons of the elevator, Sparrow installed a plugin that allowed the elevator to ascend at a tortoise speed. Then he quickly moved. Using the Student Union's command card, he unlocked the passageway to the 7th floor. This was the curfew rule unique to Jiudao High School. Once the curfew began, all the corridors would be closed to prevent students from visiting each other through the corridors. However, for a Sparrow with an authorization card, she could come and go as she pleased. Now that she thought about it carefully, the Sparrow felt that this might be the reason why the two of them chose to take the elevator. That was because forcefully breaking through the corridor's restriction might trigger an alarm. In comparison, elevators might be safer. Even if there was a floor lock, it could be easily unlocked by someone who knew how to operate it. However, for a Sparrow with an authorization card, she could come and go as she pleased. The Turtle Speed Ascent plugin was extremely useful. This bought a lot of time for Sparrow's next step. When the Sparrow reached the 7th floor, the elevator was still hovering at the 5th floor. In a public toilet cubicle on the 7th floor, the Sparrow applied an invisibility potion to herself. Then, she quickly stuck a tiny, rice grain-sized eavesdropping device in a secret position on the doorknob of each room on the 7th floor. Although the Sparrow had a hunch in her heart, she wasn't sure whether this group of people was after Wang Ling. Therefore, it would be safer to stick a listening device on the doorknob of each room. Everything was ready. As soon as the two of them stepped out of the elevator, the Sparrow in the toilet cubicle heard the clear sound of their conversation. Why is the elevator suddenly rising so slowly? Who knows? By the way, don't you think there's something wrong with that girl just now? Impossible. She's only at the foundation establishment stage. How can she see anything wrong? That's true. But she doesn't look like a decent girl. What kind of decent girl would come to the boys' dormitory in the middle of the night? Young girls nowadays are really bold. This was because of the eavesdropping device glued to each doorknob. As the two of them walked over, the Sparrow could hear every word they said. They were getting closer. The Sparrow heard that the two men finally stopped in front of room 704. As expected, thereafter Holeng sang. At that moment, the expression on the Sparrow's face was extremely cold. Judging from their voices, the two of them were middle-aged, and definitely weren't students from Jiudao High School. They sounded like gangsters. The Sparrow was sure she hadn't heard wrong. What were two gangsters who didn't belong to the school doing here? Just as the Sparrow was feeling puzzled, the next round of conversation between the two of them attracted the Sparrow's attention again. 704, this is it. That's right, Young Master Jiogong wants us to kidnap these two students with the surname Wang. This is our best chance. No. There seems to be only one person's aura in this dormitory. What should we do? Should we retreat? If we act now and only kidnap one person, the other person will definitely be alarmed. No, we have to carry out tonight's operation. We don't have time. We have to take a gamble. What if the boy with the surname Wang was the one that Miss Sun liked? We just have to take a gamble. And a bicycle will turn into a motorcycle. So that was it. They wanted to kidnap them. And it seemed to be related to the Jiogong family. In the toilet cubicle, the expression on the sparrow's face was particularly gloomy. After receiving this information, at the same time, his mind was also quickly organizing his logical thoughts. 1. These two people were sent by the Jiogong family, and it was obvious that they wanted to target Ho Langsang and little Erzong. 2. Old V had given her the task of hiding Ho Langsang. It was clear that kidnapping wouldn't be able to completely hide Ho Langsang. 3. Although these two people's goal was the same as Ho Langsang's, their purpose was completely different from hers. Conclusion: these two people would mess things up. They would definitely interfere with Senior Old V's task for her. At this thought, the sparrow couldn't restrain herself any longer. She directly came out of the cubicle with a fierce look in her eyes. Meanwhile, the two people sent by Jiogong Xiushi were fiddling with the lock at the door of Wang Ling's dormitory. Their movements were very light, as if they were afraid of disturbing Wang Ling inside. However, something unexpected happened. While they were engrossed in picking the lock, a ghostly figure suddenly appeared behind them. It was none other than the strange girl in the elevator. The sparrow's eyes revealed the expression of an eagle gazing at its prey. She curled the corners of her lips and smiled darkly. Ho Langsang is mine. As soon as she said this, the daggers in her left and right hands instantly stabbed into the bodies of the two people. Jindan. At that moment, the two people had expressions of disbelief and terror on their faces. Chapter 15:20. The white knife went in, and the red knife came out. Sparrow's actions were always neat and tidy. Being sloppy was not her style, and she had plenty of experience killing people. Sparrow moved like a ghost. When she finished circling around, the two Jianghu idlers hired by Jiogong Xiushi were stabbed in the waist on the spot. Both of them revealed a look of shock in their eyes. It was said that students in Jiogong Xiushi High School matured very early, and some reached the golden core stage before graduating. But Sparrow's appearance had opened their eyes. The upper level of the golden core stage was beyond their imagination, and it was not an exaggeration to say that it was shocking. Miss, let's talk. However, Sparrow's stab was not fatal. Both of them were people of the martial world, and they reacted quickly, enduring the pain, and quickly retreated. At the same time, they quickly took 2 pills, one to stop the bleeding, and the other to detoxify. This was to prevent the knives from being smeared with poison and narcotic drugs. Sparrow did not speak, her face was gloomy, and she was even scarier than some female ghosts. She held the dagger in both hands, and blood dripped from the tip of the dagger, dripping onto the ground, and then blossoming like a blood-colored flower. Retreat. One of the two men, who looked older, said. From the volume of his hair, it was obvious that he was the commander of this operation. When the order to retreat was given, the two moved quickly, and directly opened the window on the 7th floor, planning to jump from there. It was only a distance of 7 floors, and a golden core cultivator would not die from such a small distance. Just as they were about to jump, Sparrow stabbed again, stabbing their calves. The tip of the knife pierced through their calves and into the wall, firmly pinning them to the window sill like nails. The two instinctively wanted to scream in pain, but when they thought that their screams might cause a commotion in the entire building, they gritted their teeth and held it in. Behind them, the demon-like girl approached, and without thinking, the two quickly pulled out the dagger from their legs. They jumped from the 7th floor as if they were escaping. It was as if they had experienced a horror game. Who would have thought that there would be such a crazy woman in a male dormitory? Damn. I knew this girl wasn't normal. The balding man in the lead gritted his teeth in pain. He ran away just like that? What about the mission? You're still thinking about the mission at this time? Of course, his life was more important. Just now, that crazy girl clearly had the chance to kill us, but she didn't stab us in the vital parts. This is obviously intentional. The Mediterranean man was terrified. I'm afraid he wants to torture us to death bit by bit. In fact, this was not wrong. Torture to death, but the sparrow had this intention. On the windowsill, the sparrow stared at the blood on the ground and on the windowsill. She couldn't help but stick out her tongue and lick the blood that had splashed on the corner of her lips. Unfortunately, the two of them ran too fast. She originally wanted to drill a few holes in their calves with the dagger. She was the real hunter. It was clear that Ho Lang Sang belonged to her. After that, she had to personally end Lang Sang's life. This was a mission given to her by her most respected senior, Old V. No one could stop it. All those who snatched the mission had to die. Run? Do you think you can escape? Sparrow sneered at the sight of the two fleeing figures. It was just as the two of them had thought. She had tampered with the dagger a little, but she had smeared it. It wasn't poison. After being attacked by Sparrow, the two kidnappers whom Hideshi Kuga had sent to hire Wang Ling chose to retreat at the first opportunity. Their retreat route had been decided beforehand, so they were able to retreat very quickly. In the wee hours of the morning, at a corner a few streets away from Jiudao High, the two of them quickly boarded a black van. Did the mission fail? At that moment, a voice came from the driver's seat. Their other accomplice was also in the van. Jiudao High is too scary. A crazy girl chased after us and slashed at us. The two of them said with lingering fear. They had taken out first aid kits and were cleaning their wounds and bandaging them. Young master will be very angry, right? Nonsense. Because the plan was to kidnap that Wang guy to threaten Lotus Sun with. Now that the plan has failed, he's definitely angry. The Mediterranean man was treating his wounds. Speaking up to this point, he suddenly felt that there was something wrong with the driver today. Just as he was feeling suspicious, at that moment, the driver spoke again. Do you think I'm talking a little too much today? That's right, old Chai, you don't usually talk that much. Don't you feel a little dizzy now? When you put it like that, it seems a little. The Mediterranean man frowned. At that moment, he looked at his accomplice and suddenly realized that he had already fainted and was foaming at the mouth. When I stabbed him, I didn't put any poison on the knife. But the medicine on the knife clashed with an elixir with a hemostatic effect, and it turned into a hallucinogen. Hearing the driver's words, the middle-aged Mediterranean man in the driver's seat suddenly understood. At that moment, the strong smell of blood wafted over, and he looked in the direction of the back of the van. He saw that their real driver had already collapsed in the back of the van. Covered in blood, he was completely lying in a pool of it. You are. At that moment, the middle-aged man suddenly understood. With the sound of blood dripping, the driver in the driver's seat abruptly turned around and took off his mask. His mouth suddenly split open. Did the person who stabbed you earlier look like this? The middle-aged man could no longer resist the effects of the hallucinogen, and his face was deathly pale as he fainted. Triple kill complete. Sparrow closed her eyes. Smelling the smell of blood in the van, she suddenly felt at ease. At the same time, Wang Ling opened his eyes in dorm 704. After his earlier observation, he was now certain that this vice president of the student union at Jiudaohe High School was a combination of a ghost and a human, just like Miss Jiudao Xinghui of the Star Pluckers. Furthermore, the combination was very high. Apart from the fact that she would reveal the aura of a ghost at specific times, the smell that Sparrow usually smelled like a human was undoubtedly the smell of a ghost. Currently, it was already known that the Star Pluckers and the Silverskin people had jointly developed the technology to combine ghosts and human cultivators. Wang Ling thought that perhaps the reason why Sparrow had become what she was now was inextricably linked to the Star Pluckers' research. Jiudao Xinghui was Chieshohu's daughter, and Chieshohu wouldn't use this technology lightly unless he was absolutely certain that it would work. For this reason, he needed a large number of test subjects, and Sparrow was one of them. That was all. Actually, this wasn't Wang Ling's own guess. Because now, the three people sitting cross-legged in front of him who Wang Ling had saved from Sparrow were telling him everything they knew. Senior, this is all we know. At that moment, the three of them kowtowed to Wang Ling, but they couldn't see his face clearly. They couldn't clearly see Wang Ling's face, but Wang Ling's aura was so powerful that it struck fear into their hearts. As a matter of fact, the moment the sparrow made the first stab, Wang Ling had already activated the power of his king's eye. He used his power of sight to distort the boundary between reality and illusion. As a result, everything that had happened just now was reality in the eyes of Sparrow, but dream in the eyes of the three middle-aged men. Everything in this world. Everything had and nothing had. Everything that was real and fake. It all depended on Wang Ling's will. Chapter 1521. Wang Ling actually had a very limited number of uses for the King's Eye's 8-character eye technique, which is and is not, reality and illusion coexist. In his memory he had only used this 8 eyes technique, less than 3 times in total, and the first 2 times he used it were just a prank after he had unintentionally misbehaved. The power of the 8-word eye technique was self-evident. It could twist reality into an illusion. Then he turned the illusion into reality. This kind of ability was too terrifying. The slightest carelessness could trigger a series of butterfly effects. He was using it on the sparrow. It was also because the difference in combat strength between him and the sparrow was large enough that even if there was a butterfly effect, the sparrow would not be able to pose a substantial threat. However, if it was used to deal with someone at Peng Shiren's level, Wang Ling had to weigh the pros and cons. Wang Ling felt that it was more reliable to kill someone like Peng Shiren in one move. In this way, there would be no possibility of new problems arising. And the reason why he still kept Peng Shiren alive was because of this. There was no other reason. It was all because of that black stone. Such a large piece of black stone was left in Peng Shiren's hands. Wang Ling's heart itched unbearably. But now, Peng Shiren seemed to be using the power of the black stone to hide and deal with him from behind. He wanted to see how long this Peng Shiren could hide. As long as he dared to show his face, that mysterious black stone, Wang Ling was determined to win. At this moment, together with the driver who had been keeping a lookout on the street, the 2 people who had been sent by Hideshi Q to kidnap Wang Ling were already so shocked by Wang Ling's methods that they prostrated themselves and kowtowed. They didn't even dare to raise their heads, and they naturally felt a sense of reverence. This saved Wang Ling a lot of trouble. The balding leader's heart was as clear as a mirror. A big shot like this who didn't care about worldly affairs and chose to hide his identity as a high school student definitely didn't want others to see his face. There were some things that were better off not knowing. Otherwise, even 10 lives wouldn't be enough. According to the self-introduction, the bald man's name was One Circle. The lackeys who followed him and the driver who waited on the street were called Second Circle and Third Circle. They had no names. They were all vagrants with a certain cultivation potential that Xiushi of the 9 palaces had picked from the streets. He had no parents and was homeless, but his foundation was good and suitable for cultivation. Thus, Kwamiya Hideshi ordered his one-eyed warrior to search for such a group of people and nurture them into his subordinates. The 3 people in front of him were the most experienced among all the people Jiugong Xiushi had gathered. Senior. Young Master Xiushi, we didn't mean to offend you. If you must blame us, you can take our lives. Don't hurt young Master Xiushi. The person in the lead called One Circle said. After all, with their backgrounds, without the help of Jiugong Xiushi, they would probably still be idlers in society. No matter how evil Jiugong Xiushi was. To them he was also a benefactor. Wang Ling was actually a little touched by One Circle's words. One Circle was a man. He was willing to give up his life for Jiugong Xiushi. In a sense, Jiugong Xiushi had a good eye for people. At the same time, he sighed helplessly in his heart. He didn't mean to take anyone's life. I don't know why so many people would put the strong in front of me. His mind was immediately filled with the image of a demon who would kill at the slightest provocation. Although he was very strong, he wasn't a demon at all. He was just an ordinary high school student. His studies were ordinary, and his looks were also very ordinary. Wang Ling always felt that he was the type of person who would be drowned in a sea of people. But for some reason, there seemed to be an invisible vortex around him that would always draw all kinds of trouble to him, as well as things that he didn't want to meddle in at all. And that was exactly what had happened to the sparrow. After confirming that there was some kind of hidden ghost on the sparrow, in order to further confirm his guess, Wang Ling needed to find someone to investigate. He was unfamiliar with Sun Island. So in this situation, 1 circle, 2 circle and 3 circle in front of him were very good choices. He summoned the talkative clone he had named Backwave. He began to communicate with the 3 of them further. Wang Ling wasn't good with words, so it was actually very important to have a talkative clone. Tonight, in order to save the students who had been forcibly turned into ghosts, Wang Ling even had the urge to use his talkative clone to express his opinion in his place. The summoned Wang Lang looked a little different from Wang Ling. This wasn't a real clone. It was 1 level lower than Crispy Noodle's Dao Monarch, and was set to be the sunny, cheerful, and easygoing type. Hello, the 3 of you. My master wants you to investigate the sparrow. Is there a problem? Wang Lang said at that moment. Senior, are you talking about that little lunatic? To be honest, 1 circle still had lingering fears. This isn't making things difficult for you, is it? I'm just asking you to investigate. It's not like you're betraying your young master, Wang Lang said. This yes but yes. 1 circle said a little awkwardly. But as you can see, Senior, that little lunatic is at the upper golden core stage. The 3 of us aren't her match. Don't worry about that. I'll plant the 8 words of truth on you. The effect will be the same as what you saw before. Wang Lang laughed. Once you're in mortal danger, you'll immediately turn into an illusion. You'll be out of danger. I see. The 3 of them looked at each other and nodded. But my master's time is limited. He'll give you 12 hours at most. We need all the information we can on that student sparrow. Understood. At that moment, 1 circle got up. He patted his chest confidently and said, Senior, don't worry and leave it to us. 1 circle and the other 2 then quickly left the dormitory. Wang Ling breathed a sigh of relief, and at the same time, the clone called Wang Lang next to him also disappeared. What Wang Ling hadn't expected was that Wang Ying was actually a little unhappy. He directly revealed himself in front of Wang Ling. If there's anything, can't you just pass it on to me? Isn't it superfluous to specially create a chatterbox clone? Wang Ling had actually always felt that Wang Ying wasn't suited to this sort of persuasion work. Although he was also a chatterbox like Wang Lang, it was easier to get things done with his tone, which was clearly meant for discussion. But Wang Ying was different. Thinking this, Wang Ling wiped at his sweat. Why hadn't he used Wang Ying? In the end, Wang Ying himself didn't have the slightest idea. Just look at Sun Yinger. He was already so cruel to a girl. What more to other people? There was no way he could talk nicely. With Wang Ying's personality, he would definitely not talk if he could make a move. And regarding this, Wang Ling felt that Wang Ying would suffer sooner or later. If he didn't rein in his temper, between him and Sun Yinger, something big was going to happen. After assigning tasks to 1 circle, Wang Ling finally had a moment of peace in this chaotic night. In the girls' dormitory in 9 Paths and Area S, Lotus Sun stood on the windowsill and looked at each other from afar. She was always worried about Wang Ling, and worried that something would go wrong over there. It was getting colder tonight, and a sense of loneliness welled up in her heart. She had thought that she would go talk to Jai Yin tonight. But now, Jai Yin and Wang Ming were being intimate. It really wasn't appropriate for her to just go over like that. Her last consolation seemed to be Sun Yinger. Rong, rest early. Don't think about it. The girl's voice rang out in Lotus Sun's ear as she spoke softly. Lotus Sun was startled, and there was a slight absent-mindedness in her eyes. She leaned against the window for a while, and suddenly felt warmth on her shoulder. Someone had covered her with a blanket. Inger, I'm not cold, she said with a smile at that moment. She suddenly felt that Sun Yinger was more considerate than she had imagined. I didn't cover it either. Sun Yinger was blank. Not you. Lotus Sun was startled. Yes. There's something wrong with this blanket. It flew over on its own. Sun Yinger said in a panic at first and then quickly reacted. I know. It must be Ling Jinren. Classmate Wang Ling. A warm current instantly surged from her body to the girl's face. It was a lonely night, yes. But it was also a very beautiful night. It was clearly just an ordinary blanket. However, the smell on it seemed to have a special sweetness to it. Sometimes Lotus Sun felt that Wang Ling was very gentle, but also very cruel. The youngster was always able to inadvertently give her gentleness. But it seemed forget it. Lotus Sun shook her head. She wasn't going to think about it in detail. It was fine as long as she spent some more time, right? She was already fully prepared, wasn't she? No matter how many years it would take. She could afford it. And she wouldn't give up. It was still the morning of December 16th. At around 6 o'clock, Sparrow changed into a fresh set of clothes and returned to her dorm at Juha High School. No one knew that just a few hours ago, this vice president of the student union at Juha High School had killed 3 people. It was very troublesome to deal with the bodies of 3 people. Sparrow drove to the back of the mountain and found an open space. She used a chi explosion spell to blast open a small pit and bury the bodies. Then, she used the corpse-dissolving powder to dissolve the bodies. This corpse-dissolving powder had originally been used to deal with Wang Ling's Sparrow didn't have much on her to begin with. But to dissolve 3 golden cores, this amount was far from enough. At most, it would only be enough to disintegrate the bodies. That was to say, some of the remains of these 3 people would still be left. Helpless, Sparrow could only drag them to the back of the mountain behind Juha High School and dispose of them all at once. Sparrow dug this pit very deep. Unless there was some sort of large-scale mudslide or landslide, no one would know that 3 bodies were buried here. Of course, this was just in case. Sparrow was still prepared for the aftermath. She happened to be a cultivator with a wood spirit root. It wasn't too difficult to use tree planting to make vegetation grow rapidly. She just needed to plant a few big trees where the bodies were buried to prevent the remains from being discovered. Furthermore, as the roots grew, Sparrow could also set them into the shape she wanted. And through a claw position, she could wrap the remains in place. After doing all this, it was already morning when she returned to the student union. Sitting in her vice president's seat, she heaved a long sigh of relief. She then took a spirit-boosting elixir to prevent herself from looking lazy. She had never been someone who liked to be lazy. When Akano Usagi returned to the student union office, he looked radiant. Sparrow couldn't help feeling a little happy. Did it work last night? Seeing Chive Usagi's expression, she thought that she had completely settled Lotus Sunday. Chive Usagi smiled like a pig-headed teenager in puberty. Rubbing his head, he said, "No." Classmate Sparrow, after you drew all the attention to classmate Wang Ling yesterday, I actually hesitated for a long time about whether or not to send classmate Lotus Sun a message. We were tearing up the roses in the room, send or not. Just like that, I tore up the rose petals all over the floor. The corners of Sparrow's mouth twitched. Oh. I worked myself to death all night, and even killed 3 people in passing, and you're still freaking thinking about whether or not to send a message. In the end, did you send it or not? Staring at Chive Usagi, Sparrow felt like she was having a brain hemorrhage. No. After I finished tearing up the roses, Lotus Sun came to me of her own accord. She said she wanted to talk to me. After saying this, Sparrow instantly spat out a mouthful of blood. After tearing up the roses all night, she still hadn't sent them out. It could only be said that this was as expected of her president. Sure enough, she was hopeless. All along, Sparrow had thought that Chive Usagi only looked stupid. At the very least, he was the type who looked stupid with great intelligence. But now Sparrow had no choice but to retract this thought. None of the adolescent girls in love were normal. And the most outrageous thing was that Chive Usagi actually thought he was very powerful and felt very good about himself. He stared at Sparrow and smiled. Well, I didn't expect Lotus Sun to take the initiative to ask me out. Do you think she's interested in me? I feel like my rank isn't low. I actually have a physique that automatically attracts beautiful girls. Sparrow was silent for a moment, and then she had a headache. She rubbed her eyes and temples. She felt that she had to do a set of eye exercises to calm down. Otherwise, it was very likely that she would be angered to death by Chive Usagi. After a few minutes of calming down, Sparrow expressionlessly reminded him, "You're lucky you didn't get the good guy card." "How could that be? I'm so outstanding. I'm countless times better than Lang-san." Chive Usagi smiled. Chive Usagi chuckled. "Chive Usagi, But this time, no matter what, I still have to thank you for your help, little sparrow. Without you, I might not even have the courage to tear up the roses. But looking at the situation now, I think it's developing in a positive direction. Tell me, which level do you think I'm at? Sparrow fell silent again. Based on her understanding of girls, it was absolutely certain that Chive Usagi would get the good guy card. This level? He was clearly at the 18th level of hell. P.S. Who do you think the blanket is? 1. Wang Ling. 2. Wang Ying. 3. Unknown ghost. Chapter 15:22. There was nothing wrong with being a little confident, but being overconfident was stupid. However, there was a saying that youths in love were all mentally retarded, and Sparrow thought that this saying was perfectly reflected in Chive Sasaki. But it was normal for a straight man like Chive Sasaki to be unable to understand the meaning of a girl. When a girl who didn't have a good impression of you suddenly asked you out for a heart-to-heart talk, it wasn't that she had a mental problem, but that she was probably giving you the good guy card. It was as if Sparrow could already hear Lotus Sun's smile as she earnestly said to Chive Sasaki, "You're a good guy." But looking at Chive Sasaki's smiling face, Sparrow felt that he clearly didn't realize the seriousness of the problem. "Do you really like that lady that much?" Sparrow asked in the office of Jiodao and the student union. What Chive Sasaki didn't know was that his answer was actually a choice for Sparrow's next step. Chive Sasaki's face was red, and the rapidly rising temperature was accompanied by the steam he was emitting, causing his neat bangs to blow backwards. Of course, Chive Sasaki said. He felt that he liked Lotus Sun more than he had imagined. He had worked so hard to cultivate for so many years for her. After the Sparrow's reminder last time, he instantly understood that his feelings for Lotus Sun were not hatred. Rather, it was a kind of worship, liking, and love. He had worked so hard to cultivate just to be able to catch up to the footsteps of this goddess in his heart. Chive Sasaki's answer to Sparrow's question was very honest. Just from his expression, one could see his true feelings for Lotus Sunday. "I understand." Sparrow's face was gloomy as she replied. "Why are you asking this, classmate Sparrow?" "Nothing. I just wish you a long life together," Sparrow said. At this moment, Chive Sasaki didn't know that she was sorting out a plan in her notebook. It was a complete plan to kill Lotus Sun. She felt that Chive Sasaki would be given the good guy card anyway. When the time came, he would definitely feel pain, so she might as well end it all with her own hands. What Chive Sasaki couldn't get, then she would completely destroy it. After lunch that day, Lotus Sun hurried to a coffee shop outside the school. During the lunch break of Jadahe, the students here were free to go out. When Lotus Sun entered the cafe's private room, Chive Sasaki was already waiting for her. He ordered the cafe's specialty desserts and steaming hot hand-ground coffee, waiting expectantly for Lotus Sun to arrive. But what they didn't know was that the people next door to their private room were none other than Wang Ming, Jai Yin, and Wang Ling. Of course, it wasn't Wang Ling who had volunteered to come, but Wang Ming and Jai Yin, who had sensed that something wasn't right, had dragged him along. Wang Ling sucked on the coffee in the crispy noodle snacks and stared expressionlessly at the two chattering people in front of him. "Little brother, why can't you be anxious?" Wang Ming frowned. "Miss Rong is meeting another man for coffee. Do you think this leak Sasaki press has good intentions? This isn't as simple as pouring a cup of cappuccino for an old auntie. He's clearly interested in Miss Rong." Wang Ling. Wang Ming's mouth was like a machine gun. In fact, he knew very well what Lotus Sun was here for. The reason why he had dragged Wang Ling over was purely to see his little brother's reaction. As it turned out, Wang Ling wasn't nervous at all, as expected. Wang Ming couldn't help sighing in his heart. It seemed that what he was most worried about had happened. Was it because the talisman had been suppressed for too long? As a result, Wang Ling had become a completely emotionless person. Although the talisman could seal off emotions to a certain extent, Wang Ming had overlooked a very important point all this time. That was, if emotions were sealed for too long, it was very likely that a kind of habitual thinking would form in the heart and mind. In the worst-case scenario, it might form a cage-like seal in one's heart. Wang Ming frowned. The more he thought about it, the more he felt the importance of developing a new type of talisman. for the safety of the earth and the universe, and at the same time, for his little brother's happiness. Wang Ling lowered his head and stirred the crispy noodle snacks in his hand with a coffee spoon. The waiter outside glanced in their direction every now and then. This coffee shop had a DIY coffee service, and the waiter was amazed because he had never seen this kind of drinking method before. He had seen immortal grass, taro balls, aloe vera jelly, but he had never seen crispy noodle snacks as the base. Could this stuff really be drunk? Elsewhere, in the private room, Leek Sasaki looked at Lotus-san in high spirits, his face full of happiness and satisfaction. I wonder why Lotus-san is looking for me today. You're not going to say that I'm a good person, are you? Hearing this, Lotus-san almost choked, but after staring blankly for a moment, she still smiled and said, "How did classmate Leek Sasaki know?" Leek Sasaki's heart instantly felt like it had been struck by lightning. Lotus-san, so straightforward. Leek Sasaki smiled bitterly. I have something even more straightforward. Lotus-san smiled. But I actually don't want to hurt classmate Leek Sasaki. Because classmate Leek Sasaki is indeed a very good person who is very hardworking and ambitious. But the two of us aren't suitable. This time, Lotus-san had come with the intention of breaking everything and explaining it all to the world. At the same time, she was also afraid of hurting Leek Sasaki's self-esteem. Thus, as she laid her cards on the table, she also did her best to consider Leek Sasaki's feelings. Although I'm very disappointed, I'm very touched that Lotus-san can tell me so frankly. I'm very touched. Leek Sasaki smiled. Then can we still be friends in the future? We're friends now, Lotus-san said with a smile. That kind of gentle and refined yet generous personality made Leek Sasaki's heart itch. He felt that a boy who could be liked by Lotus-san must have saved the Milky Way, or the universe in his previous life. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to find such a good girl even if he had a lantern. Since we're friends, then Lotus-san can call me Leek from now on. Calling me classmate Leek Sasaki is too formal. Okay, brother Leek. Lotus-san smiled. She knew that Leek Sasaki was older than her. In order to get closer to him, she didn't think it was too much to call him brother. Rong-chan, can I ask another question? At this moment, Chive Sasaki sighed slightly and asked. Of course. I want to know, what's wrong with me? Even if I die, you have to let me die knowing. Leek Sasaki didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Well, Lotus-san stared blankly then quickly blushed. She stared at Leek Sasaki and said seriously, that's because I already have someone I like, and I want to be with him for the rest of my life. Chapter 15:23. The girl's voice wasn't particularly loud when she spoke, but the seriousness on her face still shocked Leek Sasaki. It's great that Ryo-chan has found someone she really likes. He was genuinely happy for her. Perhaps this was a kind of relief after being rejected. His impression of Lotus-san hadn't collapsed because she had rejected him, but had become even more solid than before. A girl who could bravely ask out other people who had feelings for her for the person she really liked, and then give them a nice person card. Wasn't this kind of girl worth cherishing? When it came to relationships, Leek Sasaki had never been the forceful type. He felt that expressing one's true feelings was the way to go. If you liked someone, then you liked them. If you didn't like them, then say so earlier. Don't let people misunderstand. Many boys and girls, because they were hesitant and didn't know how to express their stance, kept a lot of spare tires. This was a very impolite behavior of scum men and scum women. Because of their personalities, some of these people might not have done it on purpose, while others simply wanted to keep a few more wallets that could feed them. No matter what, I still have to thank you this time, Ryo-chan. Leek Sasaki thanked her from the bottom of his heart. Brother Leek, why are you thanking me? Lotus-san roughly knew what Leek Sasaki was thinking, but out of politeness, she still asked. He laughed. I remember I have a buddy who likes a girl. That girl never directly rejected him. On the contrary, she would send him messages, asking him to buy this and that. Just like that, my buddy was dead set on pursuing her, until one day, when he was eating in a restaurant, he found her with another boy. That's too much. How could he leave her hanging like that? Lotus-san said. Who said otherwise? Leek Sasaki sighed. Later, my buddy felt that he had been deceived. He went up to question her on the spot. In the end, he flipped through the girl's phone contact list and found that apart from herself, she was also chatting with 78 boys as her boyfriend and girlfriend. 78. The corners of Lotus Sun's eyes twitched when she heard this. Leek Sasaki laughed. So I'm actually very happy that Ryo-chan took the initiative to talk to me about everything. Besides, we can still be friends, can't we? Of course. Lotus Sun smiled. The meet and greet at the cafe was smoother than she had imagined. At this moment, a shop assistant suddenly barged into their private room. Hello miss, your refill is a crispy noodle snack coffee. The shop assistant pushed the door open and saw that the people sitting inside were different from the ones he had just served. Only then did he realize that he had gone to the wrong place. He hurriedly apologized. Sorry, I went the wrong way. I'm really sorry for disturbing the two of you. Only after they left did Lotus Sun realize something. Wait, who ordered this cup of coffee? I'm sorry, miss. We can't reveal our customers' privacy. The shop assistant smiled. He quickly rushed out of the private room and saw that Lotus Sun had also followed him out. The shop assistant. It's yours, I was just passing by. Lotus Sun smiled. The shop assistant had no choice but to bring the coffee to the private room Wang Ming was in. When he entered, the young man was stunned because he realized that the young man who had invented this new way of drinking coffee had disappeared. Brother heir, sister factor, what a coincidence. Lotus Sun smiled knowingly. After their eavesdropping was exposed, Wang Ming and Jai Yin promptly dropped their foreheads into their hands. Actually, it was a little unfortunate that Wang Ling hadn't heard the end of the conversation. The coffee in his hand had instantly disappeared, as if something urgent had happened, but given Wang Ling's temper, even if he had heard it, he probably wouldn't have reacted. Wang Ling had indeed run away halfway, and it was indeed because something had happened. But it wasn't Wang Ming who had said it was because something urgent had happened, because he had received a message from the Sun Island Mahjong trio. Wang Ling himself hadn't expected that one circle and the other two would actually immediately carry out a series of investigations on the matter. He had given them in the wee hours of the morning, and had already made some progress. Wang Ling and the representative of the trio, the balding middle-aged one circle, had successfully made contact near Maple Park, which was the closest to Jiudao High School. In front of an ice cream shop, one circle held an ice cream cone with crispy noodle snack crumbs on it as he waited for Wang Ling. In the blink of an eye, Wang Ling had already appeared in front of one circle. For safety reasons, Wang Ling had activated the Great Shielding spell to the maximum. That was to say, even if someone saw him now, as long as he left for a while, they would completely forget about him. Holang sang, we've made new progress in our investigation. One circle handed the ice cream cone to Wang Ling, then explained the clues they had obtained so far with a serious expression on his face. It's like this. After Wei Chun received the task, we immediately investigated Student Sparrow's residence, one circle said. After our investigation, we found out that apart from the school's Area S Student Union Cadre dormitory, Student Sparrow actually has an additional villa in Sun Island's Dongfu City. The name belongs to Student Sparrow. Speaking up to this point, one circle showed Wang Ling a photo of the villa's property certificate. It had been taken through special means, and it was obvious that they had been in a hurry to gather the information. But the key information was there, and the photo was very clear. It was only now that Wang Ling saw Sparrow's real name, Six-Eyed Scarlet Wazi. At first glance, it was a very familiar name, especially the Qi character in the middle, because this Qi was the Qi of the Qi family, and the Qi family was the one who currently controlled the largest underworld organization on Sun Island, the Star Plucking Group. Even if he didn't calculate it, Wang Ling had a vague feeling. He felt that Sparrow had something to do with the Qi family. As it turned out, it was indeed true. Given that crazy girl's financial strength, there's no way she could have her own villa in an area like Dongfu City. So we conducted an in-depth investigation into the girl's identity. In the end, we discovered that the girl was the illegitimate daughter of the current leader of the Star Plucking Group, Chiba Chiba. And it was Chiba Chiba who bought this villa for her. So far, all the information had key photos as evidence. To confirm this point, we deliberately extracted the girl's DNA, One Circle said. They couldn't collect Chiba's DNA, but they did have Kyuka Starlight's DNA. Hideshi Q had always been wary of this sixth wife of their family. Thus, he had long since planned to extract DNA data. The method was also very simple. They just needed to put away the utensils that Kyuka Starlight had used. The Chi family's DNA data could be obtained from the saliva on the utensils. As for Sparrow's DNA data, One Circle had a harder time obtaining it. First of all, Sparrow was a cautious and clean person. This was the case in both her residence and her villa. Spotless. Not even a strand of hair. But as luck would have it, One Circle and the others were very lucky, because just this morning, they discovered that Sparrow was on her period. This was a physiological phenomenon that no girl could avoid. After Sparrow left the women's restroom, One Circle directly rushed into the school's restroom. He snatched the blood-stained sanitary pad from the trash can. It could only be said that, as expected of the Sun Island Mahjong trio, who had been groomed by Hideshi Q's side for a long time, and had been working for him since childhood, this was indeed a neat and efficient way of doing things. Furthermore, they weren't afraid of danger. With Sparrow's information, the storyline in Wang Ling's mind gradually became clear. Everything was as he had imagined. Sparrow was related to the Star Plucking Group. The Star Plucking Group had been experimenting with the human-ghost fusion technology, and Sparrow had been the first to be used as a test subject by Chiechiohu. In the end, Qiu Xinghui was the daughter of his first wife, and given that she was treated differently, Chiechiohu had used his illegitimate daughter, Sparrow, as his first test subject. Even a vicious tiger wouldn't eat its cubs. This kind of evil behavior was enough to make people tremble in fear. And now Wang Ling finally realized why the Sparrow had become so crazy. The source of all this was sin. It had all started with Chiechiohu of the Star Plucking Group. At this thought, he already knew what was going on. Last night, after he had sent his little clone to wreak havoc in the Star Plucking Group's Golden City, Chiechiohu and that silver-skinned human king's auras had disappeared. He guessed that the other party had probably received Peng Shiren's protection. The three of them were probably hiding in the space covered by the power of black stone and playing Fight the Landlord. The situation now seemed to have stabilized, but he didn't think it would last for long. Peng Shiren wouldn't have the patience to wait too long. This was a ferocious, venomous snake lurking in the dark. Once the other party felt that it was the right opportunity to make a move, it definitely wouldn't miss it. And what Wang Ling needed to do now was just waiting, and create an opportunity for them to think that he could make a move, and that he would definitely win. But there was only one chance to lure the snake out of its hole, because if he used the same method to trick them again next time, it probably wouldn't be so easy. At that moment, Wang Ling already had a sure-win plan. This time, once Peng Shiren showed his face, he would definitely capture Peng Shiren along with that mysterious black stone. One person, one stone. He wanted them all. Time: Wednesday, December 16th, 1:30 in the afternoon. After parting ways with One Circle, Wang Ling returned to Nine Paths and high school. Before he left, he had warned One Circle to return to normal. Even if Qiu Xinghui wanted him to make a move, he shouldn't disobey him. Wang Ling would make everything seem like an accident. When that time came, even if Qiu Xinghui blamed him, he wouldn't be able to blame One Circle and the others. That was to say, One Circle, Two Circle and Three Circle were the three closest to Qiu Xinghui. Now they had all become pawns that Wang Ling could use. This would play a key role in Lotus Sun's plan to disguise herself as Ryoko Q. Wang Ling returned to Class S. He realized that Class S seemed to be a lot more harmonious today. Lang-san, if there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me. Lang-san? Are you thirsty? I'll treat you to a drink. You can drink whatever you want. Lang-san, you came with Rong-chan abroad this time. Is it because you have a particularly good relationship with her? Lang-san, Rong-chan said that you're stronger than her? She's probably joking, right? You're so cute, just like a slime. Are you really that strong? He didn't know if it was because Lotus Sun and Akano Yagi had laid their cards on the table and reconciled. Many people saw that Lotus-san and Akano Yagi's relationship had improved, and the tense atmosphere instantly changed. Furthermore, there were always people who kept asking Wang Ling strange questions. Wang Ling marveled at how true it was in his heart. At the same time, he paid some attention to that student Sparrow. Just like before, she still looked as if it had nothing to do with her. After school that day, the president of the student union, Akano Yagi, made an official announcement. He said that he was going to hold a closed-door cultivator martial arts competition for the 9 paths and high schools. The reason why they had chosen to hold a closed-door event was actually because Akano Yagi had fully considered Lotus-san's intentions after giving his opinion. This was because the Sun Island High School ranking list had been hacked last night. As a result, the data hadn't been restored yet. Everyone on the ranking list had an ID called Backwave. Thus, after some discussion, the student unions of the major high schools on Sun Island decided to hold a closed-door martial arts competition in their own high schools. The 5 representatives with the strongest battle prowess were chosen. The 5-member delegation would directly represent their schools in the group stage. They would be selected from 100 high schools, and would ultimately be ranked based on their overall score in the competition. Similarly, the entire process would be behind closed doors. Apart from the participants, the competition would be completely private, and filming and live streaming were prohibited. All the high schools had almost unanimously expressed their support for this private, closed-door competition. Wang Ling found this inconceivable. After all, most young people nowadays love to be in the limelight. Later on, Wang Ling found out. It turned out that Sun Island was going to hold an even larger, international open competition for high school cultivators. Many of the high schools had agreed to this closed-door challenge for the sake of concealment tactics in advance. In any case, it wasn't public, and the entire process was prohibited from being recorded. Even if they used tactics in advance, it wouldn't be spread for people to study. And the point was that it wouldn't be too embarrassing if they lost. There were advantages to being behind closed doors. At the very least, there wasn't as much psychological pressure. After school, Akano Yagi put an invitation on Wang Ling's desk. Wang Ling raised his head and looked at Akano Yagi with a puzzled expression. Akano Yagi smiled. Even if it's temporary, Holangsang is now a member of our 9 paths. I sincerely hope that Holangsang can also participate in this event. Although we haven't spent much time together, I have a feeling that we can become very good friends, right? Also, everyone is very interested in Holangsang, and I hope that he can show everyone his true skills through this closed-door competition. Wang Ling was silent. In the end, he still accepted the invitation. Since it was a closed-door competition, there was no harm in participating. As for whether or not to show his true skills, Wang Ling felt that it was better not to. Chapter 1524. In Wang Ling's dormitory in Area S dormitory building. Wang Ming, Jiayin, Lotus-san and Wang Ling. The 4 of them were sitting on the edge of the bed, facing each other in pairs. They were discussing Wang Ling's participation in the closed-door meeting. Wang Ming frowned, and still felt that the risk was too great. No, I still don't agree to you participating in the closed-door competition. Even if it's a closed-door competition, the current situation is very dangerous. Isn't it fine as long as we let student Wang Ling slack off? If he doesn't participate now, it will be very suspicious. Also, he might not be able to properly complete the task that Ryoko gave us, Lotus-san said. She also had her own considerations. I fully understand what Miss Rong means. But now really isn't the time. Wang Ming sighed. The talisman's effect weakens with time. It's been almost half a year since I replaced Ling Ling with a new talisman at the Spirit Sword Exchange meet. And from the looks of it now, the degree of decline of the talisman is obviously much stronger than before. A new talisman generally lasts for 2 to 3 years. Now I'm afraid it'll be replaced once a year. If I participate in the competition, even if it's a closed-door meeting like this, the talisman will wear down a lot. There was clearly helplessness in Wang Ming's tone. There was nothing he could do. He was also thinking about the world, and even the universe. If the youngster in front of him, his dearest little brother, completely lost control. The energy that would erupt from his body might be no less than the Big Bang. How could he let that happen? There should be another way. Lotus Sun's eyes were slightly hopeful. There is, but Wang Ming actually wasn't good at lying, especially when he saw his sister-in-law looking at him like this. He couldn't face the girl with a lie. If you have a way, don't hide it. Everyone's anxious now. Jiayin elbowed Wang Ming. Just for a moment. Wang Ming felt his status plummet. Each and every one of them wouldn't listen to advice. He frowned. Unless we stick another talisman. Since the talisman's power has already weakened, sticking another one is the best way. Then what are you waiting for? Hurry up and do it. Jiayin looked at Wang Ming. No, Inzi. Making a talisman isn't like laying eggs. How is that possible? Wang Ming didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Currently, it takes a week for me to develop the latest version of the complete Dao Talisman seal. The technical content was very high, and ordinary people couldn't do it at all. Also, this method is risky. What risk? The talisman on Ling Ling's body is like a suppressant. If you use it too much, you will develop a resistance. This is also the reason why the effectiveness of the talisman is decreasing year by year even after the upgrade. Wang Ming said, currently, the materials in the talisman that can produce a sealing effect are already a little lacking for Ling Ling. We need to find a stronger substitute. Therefore, in the current situation, before a stronger talisman is developed, in principle, it is better to save as much as possible. It's better not to abuse it. This was what Wang Ming was most worried about. Now it would take him a week to develop a complete talisman seal. That was to say, if Wang Ling's resistance reached the point where he would need to change a talisman every week, by then, he might not be able to make one at all. On the other side, Wang Ming was at a loss. At that moment, Wang Ling raised his eyes and looked at him calmly as he said, before graduation, is that okay? This was Wang Ming's promise at the Jiogong family mansion earlier. He still remembered it. This man had solemnly promised him that he would definitely find the perfect solution before graduation. That's true. Wang Ming reached out and scratched his cheek. I've always believed in you. Wang Ling spoke telepathically. The voice rang out directly in Wang Ming's mind. This was a great encouragement to Wang Ming. It was a feeling of being trusted. As a scientist who was dedicated to researching new cultivation technology, Wang Ming suddenly felt that the moment when his little brother trusted him was the proudest moment of his life. He immediately smiled helplessly. Fine, I really don't know what to do with you. But is it too late to make the talisman now? Didn't you say it would take a week? At that moment, Jiayin asked a crucial question. It's true that the complete talisman seal will take a week. But if it's an incomplete one, it won't take that long. Given the time we have now, we should make as many as we can. Wang Ming did a simple calculation. Jiu Daohe's closed-door competition would start at noon tomorrow. Before noon, he would probably be able to make around 100 incomplete talismans. 100 of them would be roughly 1/7 of the complete talismans. The most important thing was that they would be very brittle. Who knew, when Wang Ling competed, these incomplete talismans might explode like firecrackers, but they would still be effective in sealing them. They could stabilize Wang Ling's current strength. There's no other way now. It's better than nothing, let's do our best. Wang Ming sighed at that moment. He stared at Wang Ling with a hint of helplessness and love in his eyes. Actually, Wang Ming himself hadn't expected Wang Ling to choose to participate in the competition this time. Number 60 High School wasn't a famous school. But after joining Number 60 High School, Wang Ming realized that Wang Ling's introverted nature had gradually opened up. He was far less autistic than before. Now Wang Ling wanted to participate. As his big brother, what could he do? He hoped that Wang Ling could live a little more freely and happily. But judging from Wang Ling's expression, perhaps he himself didn't understand why his body had uncontrollably reached out to accept Chive Sasaki's invitation to the closed-door competition. Perhaps it was a desire hidden deep in his heart. It had prompted his body to respond honestly. But because of the existence of the talisman seal, from a young age, Wang Ling had been deprived of the emotions he should have when facing all kinds of things. On this side, Wang Ming's heart ached for Wang Ling. He saw the back page of the invitation on the table. There was actually a back page? Wang Ming raised his eyebrows. When he discovered that the rewards for the Jiudaohe's closed-door competition this time included a gift bag of snacks, and that the gift bag contained the Sun Island limited edition crispy noodle snacks, Wang Ming suddenly felt like he understood something. As expected? Or was he too naive? Thursday, December 17th. Before the Jiudaohe High School closed-door competition at noon, Wang Ling was sticking the incomplete version of the talisman seal that Wang Ming had made in his dormitory. In order to make it easier to stick, the talisman seals had been made into band-aids. You could just tear off the plastic and directly press them on your body. Wang Ling looked in the mirror at the dogskin plaster all over his body, lost in deep thought. Then he put on the number 60 high school uniform. The uniform was very loose, and was enough to hide all the talisman seals without leaving a trace. Oh, that was right. Before Wang Ling stuck the talisman seals on, he used the hair removal spell to remove all the hair on his body, which wasn't very much to begin with. Perhaps a lot of people had experienced this before. If he didn't remove his hair, he would tear off the dog skin plaster on his body. When the time came, he would tear off his hair along with it, and that feeling would be too painful. Thus, it was actually very necessary to use the hair removal spell. When these 99 incomplete version of the talisman seal were stuck on his body, Wang Ling indeed felt that the effect of the seal had been strengthened. And he could now exert more force with greater ease. He didn't have to worry about blowing these foundation establishment students apart with a light breath. When he arrived at class in the morning, Wang Ling heard Leek Sasaki greet him warmly. "Queen Lang-san, good morning." And Wang Ling responded softly and nodded politely. The competition is today. Didn't Lang-san rest well last night? Leek Sasaki frowned. Wang Ling? Question mark. Because I can clearly feel that Lang-san's aura seems to be a lot weaker than it was yesterday. Speaking up to this point, Leek Sasaki sighed. It's all my fault. I should have reminded Lang-san earlier that he should have restrained himself before the competition. How does the saying go? Young people don't know how expensive things are, and old people will cry for nothing. Wang Ling. Wang Ling fell silent at these words. Before he could fully react, Leek Sasaki's rhythm continued. The students of Class S started a new round of concern for him. Lang-san, I heard you didn't rest well last night. Do you need 66 Remania pills to nourish your body? Lang-san, it actually doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you lose the competition. As girls, we just need to quietly cheer on the side. Oh no, you don't look like a girl, but look at how good your skin is. It's even better than a girl's. Lang-san, do you want a bed? I'll bring one over for you now. Wang Ling suddenly realized that there was something more and more wrong with Class S. In the corridor, Leek Sasaki couldn't help nodding in satisfaction as he watched his classmates communicate enthusiastically with Wang Ling. He had started to notice Wang Ling after Lotus Sun had laid her cards on the table. This ordinary-looking youngster, who was known as the mascot of number 60 high school. In Leek Sasaki's eyes, there was something very unusual about him beneath his harmless appearance. Although Lotus Sun hadn't said it out loud, Leek Sasaki could actually sense it. Whether it was clearing the way in the canteen back then or standing up for him in Class S's first class, it was all for the sake of this youngster in front of him. Lang-san, what on earth was it about you that attracted Miss Rong so deeply? With this curiosity, Leek Sasaki started to let go of all his arrogance and prejudice to try to understand this point. Gradually, he really discovered something about Wang Ling that was different from the rest of the world. This was a youngster who didn't care about worldly affairs, and looked particularly low-key. To describe him as a flower, he felt that Wang Ling was like a crabapple flower. Simple, generous, beautiful but not ostentatious. All of a sudden, Leek Sasaki realized the qualities that he had always lacked. He felt that he could learn more from Wang Ling, and become a better person. And with this curiosity, Leek Sasaki started to go online to learn more about Wang Ling, until he saw the essay that Wang Ling had written at the Nine Dragon Mountain Conjuration Conference. A speck of ash in the age. Leek Sasaki read the golden line in the essay. He was instantly deeply attracted by Wang Ling's talent. And so, until today, right before the start of the competition, Leek Sasaki made an important decision. He was going to join the Grey Sect. He was going to become Wang Ling's #1 fan overseas. Elsewhere, in a mysterious celestial body that looked like a black hole in the Milky Way. This was a new celestial body formed by the power of the black stone devouring the black hole, and Peng Shiren called it Star Devouring. At that moment, Peng Shiren's battle strength was suppressed in Star Devouring, and he couldn't use his full strength. But he could still use the power of the stars in the universe to monitor external objects. Every celestial body was like a satellite to Peng Shiren. They could help Peng Shiren send a special signal to Earth from afar. Thus he could monitor Wang Ling. After Wang Ling had schemed against them and caused the endless Milky Way to explode, Peng Shiren had taken the grave god, the owner of that evil eye, to hide here to recuperate. His injuries were almost healed. But now still wasn't the best time to make a move. Peng Shiren looked into the distance. At that moment, he had also taken Akino Shohu and Silver-Skin Human King into Star Devouring. Both of them were in a state of deep sleep, recuperating with medicine to speed up their recovery. At this level, I'm still not at my peak. We need to prepare for the Heavenly Tomb's plan ahead of schedule. In the darkness, the grave god opened his eyes. I know. Peng Shiren nodded. But now isn't the best time. Peng Shiren already had control of the Heavenly Tomb. But based on Peng Shiren's understanding of his Shifu, the Heavenly Tomb was bound to be full of traps. Without sufficient confidence, there was no way they would set foot there. The grave god was called the grave god because Dao ancestor Wang had been shocked by its power and split it in two. One half was in the endless Milky Way. The other half was in the Heavenly Tomb. The grave god hadn't fused with the other half of the Heavenly Tomb's power, but it already had 90% of its peak strength. If it fused with all of its power, one could imagine how strong it would be. At that time, even Wang Ling might not be able to stop it, right? Just as Peng Shiren was deep in thought. At that moment, his eyebrows suddenly twitched. Wait, how can it be, the grave god? What's going on? Peng Shiren laughed. I can't be wrong. I can't be wrong. Earlier, I kept saying that the time wasn't right. But just now, I realized that the time has come. The grave god. What the hell is going on? Sure enough, there is no one in this world who can stay strong forever. Peng Shiren sneered. I don't know what exactly happened, but now I realize that Wang Ling's aura has dropped a lot. Maybe he's in a weak state? I think it's our chance to make a move. Chapter 1525. Wang Ling's aura had weakened. For Peng Shiren and the grave god inside, this was the perfect opportunity to strike. As Dao ancestor Wang's first true disciple, Wang Ling was taught by Dao ancestor Wang and learned the most orthodox cultivation knowledge in the universe. His years of learning told him that everything in the world had a law of conservation. No one could be strong for no reason. Furthermore, they could continue to be strong forever. Thus Peng Shiren felt that he had seized this unique opportunity. While he was weak. Kill him. In this world. Was there anything more wonderful than this? As long as Wang Ling died, Peng Shiren was sure that there was probably no one else in the world who could stop him. So, are we going to strike? At that moment, the grave god opened his eyes slightly. Yes. The opportunity was right in front of him, although he didn't know why. Although we don't know why. He has indeed become weaker than before. Peng Shiren nodded and said. Previously, a normal punch from him could unleash the power of 100 cores, but now he's so weak that he only has 10 cores left. Nucleus, or nucleus for short. This was the unit of combat strength after the progenitor realm. The power of one nucleus could easily destroy a planet and kill anyone below the progenitor realm. Dao gods were just ants. Peng Shiren was currently a progenitor expert with the strength of a Dao ancestor. A normal punch from him was about 50 to 60 cores. After fighting Wang Ling the last time, Peng Shiren judged that Wang Ling had the power of 100 cores. Peng Shiren was alarmed by this gap. But now Wang Ling's aura had weakened, so Peng Shiren was no longer afraid. In fact, he hadn't expected this at all. Not only had Wang Ling not been serious with that punch, he had also struck it while it was still sealed. Thus, he had seriously underestimated Wang Ling's true combat strength. This was a mismatch of information. But for Wang Ling, it was all the same. This time, he had chosen to participate in the closed-door competition not only for the crispy noodle snacks, but also for the prize money. At the same time, he had also calculated that if he insisted on participating in the competition, Wang Ming would definitely put so many Dao Talisman seals on him repeatedly like this to suppress his overall battle strength. With so many incomplete version talisman seals, the weakening of Wang Ling's aura was in fact one of the effects of the talisman seals. And after his aura had weakened, Wang Ling guessed that Peng Shiren was definitely on the move. He was right. Everything had actually been within Wang Ling's calculations. It looked like Wang Ling was on the first floor. The operation was actually on the second floor. But the true core, actually it was on the 1000th level. Before noon, the martial arts dojo of Jiudao and High School became the main venue for this closed-door meeting. The martial arts hall was not very big, about the size of 2 basketball courts. There were spectator seats nearby. This time, all the audience members were high-quality audience members who had been strictly screened by the Nine Paths High School's student council. They were all internal students of the Nine Paths High School. Furthermore, everyone had to go through a series of checks before entering. Make sure that no one carries any modern technological equipment or Dharma treasures that can record images or sound. Since it was a closed-door meeting, there had to be zero dissemination. Leek Sasaki personally participated and strictly checked every step. Everything was for the sake of fulfilling Lotus Sun's request. Everything is ready. Is Rongchan satisfied? Before the closed-door competition began, Chive Sasaki stood in the central control room of the martial arts club and looked at the surveillance screen in front of him. Lotus Sun and Wang Ming were next to Chive Sasaki. Wang Ming was here to provide technical support. If any of the people present slipped through the net with equipment, Wang Ming would be able to easily catch them with his own methods. Thank you for everything, Brother Chives. Lotus Sun smiled politely. You're welcome. Chive Sasaki rubbed his head in embarrassment. But is Rong-chan sure she won't participate? Actually, we're all looking forward to seeing her heroic appearance. It's fine as long as classmate Wang Ling is participating. Lotus Sun smiled. She had her own reasons for not participating in the competition. Actually, she didn't want to face Wang Ling in the subsequent matches. Secondly, there was no need for her to participate in the competition. She was well aware that part of the reason Wang Ling was participating in the competition was for the prize money. He was using it to buy a gift for Anwan. Thus, the girl could only support him. Wang Ling was a good brother. He was able to think of his little sister even before she was born. When she thought about it carefully, Lotus Sun suddenly realized that she was quite jealous of Wang Wan. But she also knew that this kind of jealousy was actually very childish. Wasn't it only right for an older brother to be good to his little sister? Perhaps everyone had fantasized about having an older brother who was extremely good to them. The topic of Brother Guoyu was a hot topic almost every year, and it was the subject of heated discussion. Lotus Sun had thought about it before. It wouldn't be bad if she could acknowledge Wang Ling as an older brother. But now, she had already completely thrown the idea to the back of her mind, because she realized that her ambition was even greater than she had imagined. Just last night, she had also dreamed of a little story about going camping with Wang Ling in the wild. In the dream, she had been sleeping in her sleeping bag. In order to see her face clearly, the youngster had flipped her body around like a pot sticker and turned her sleeping face in his direction. This was an indescribable dream. Lotus Sun could even feel the youngster's aura close at hand, as well as those clear eyes. She stretched out her hand from her sleeping bag, wanting to touch his face. But before she could, she had already woken up. I don't know what on earth Rong-chan is thinking, but it's not too late to sign up for the competition now, Chive Sasaki said with a smile at that moment. These words broke the girl's train of thought. Lotus Sun blushed slightly and nodded. A few minutes later, the closed-door competition was about to begin. For this closed-door competition, almost all the students of Class S in Nine Paths and high schools had come. Including some students from Class A, there were 62 people in total. In the waiting room for the contestants, Wang Ling was resting in an armchair and looked to be in good shape. Lotus Sun, Chive Sasaki and Wang Ming were watching everything from the surveillance room. They had a god's view. They could see the overall picture very clearly. At that moment, Wang Ling was waiting for the competition to begin when a group of girls suddenly surrounded him. "You must be Holang-san. You've been in President Chive Sasaki's class all this time. You disappear after class every time, and I couldn't find you. Now I've finally found you in person. Holang-san is even cuter than I thought. I'm too embarrassed to play against him. What if I get matched up against him?" Chive Sasaki couldn't help laughing at this expected scene. Sure enough, Holang-san is very popular. He was about to check on Lotus Sun's reaction when he realized that the girl who had been standing next to him had already disappeared. When he came back to his senses, the girl's figure had already reappeared on the screen in the waiting room for the contestants. Under everyone's stupefied gazes, a lot of people in the waiting room cried out in surprise. Wasn't this classmate Ryoko Kyuya? Wasn't she supposed to be studying abroad in Hwasyo Nation? Why was she suddenly back? Chapter 1526. This wasn't the time to carry out the disguise plan, but Lotus Sun had to admit it. The moment she saw a group of girls surrounding Wang Ling, she couldn't help it. She had initially agreed not to participate in the competition, but now she had no choice. In any case, she wasn't using her real identity. It shouldn't be a problem if she participated, right? It wouldn't be too embarrassing if she lost the competition in the end. Because the loser was Ryoko Q. What did that have to do with her? That was what Lotus Sun thought in her heart. She felt that this could be considered an extra reward from Ryoko Q. Furthermore, there was a clause in her verbal agreement with Ryoko Q. In an emergency situation, she could act on her own as long as it didn't damage Ryoko Q's reputation. So here was the question. In this closed-door competition, what kind of ranking did she have to achieve so that her reputation wouldn't be damaged? Lotus Sun felt that a top 4 finish should be enough. Ryoko Q's realm wasn't at the Golden Core stage yet. It might even be difficult for her to enter the top 8. Entering the top 4 would be an extraordinary performance. Lotus Sun felt that Ryoko Q should be thanking her. Seeing that Lotus Sun had directly and openly charged forward, in the surveillance room, Wang Ming, who had immediately recognized Lotus Sun, also dropped his forehead into his hand. He knew this would happen. So, what was this? A deterrent from his sister-in-law's Empress Dowager? Wang Ming laughed bitterly in his heart. He was thinking about how to explain the situation to the bewildered Leek Sasaki. In the end, after staring blankly for a while, Leek Sasaki seemed to react. "Why do I feel that classmate Ryoko is a little strange? She doesn't seem to be classmate Ryoko. In terms of temperament, she looks a little like Ryoko." Wang Ming snorted. "You're a sensible person, classmate Leek. My name is Leek Sasaki. Only people who are familiar with me can call me Leek." Leek Sasaki frowned, as if he minded. "All right, classmate Leek Sasaki." Wang Ming spread his hands indifferently. He had actually thought it through before deciding to tell Leek Sasaki, because based on his judgment, Leek Sasaki was a good person. He wouldn't pose a real threat. Furthermore, Leek Sasaki was someone who was related to the Ryoko family and the star-picking group. The subsequent disguise plan might be even smoother. Why is Ryoko pretending to be Kyuya Ryoko? Leek Sasaki stared at the screen with a puzzled frown. It's a long story. Since it would take a long time to explain, Wang Ming decided to use brainwaves to directly transmit himself to Chive Sasaki. After understanding the whole story, the expression on Chive Sasaki's face gradually changed from confusion to shock. What? Internal strife in the Jiogong family? If you shout louder, the whole world will hear you. Wang Ming laughed. Fortunately, he had already calculated this and used the magnetic shield to cover the central control room. At this moment, Chive Sasaki had a complicated and conflicted expression on his face. He didn't expect that this Wang Xiao would tell him so many things. Moreover, he had never thought that after his aunt, Akano Xinghui, married into the Kugyu family, She was actually trying to do something detrimental to the Kugyu family. Sorry. Chive Sasaki took the initiative to bow to Wang Ming. Why should I apologize? I just feel that my aunt's behavior has caused you trouble. No, classmate Chive. Wang Ming smiled. Maybe your aunt isn't a bad person, but was possessed by a ghost and lost her mind. Just like that deputy president Sparrow next to you. They're just pawns for a Kanochyohu. He was calling out to Chive Sasaki. But this time, Chive Sasaki didn't reject him. Because Chive Sasaki already knew that the relationship between Wang Ming and Lotus Sun was unusual. Otherwise, there was no way he could know so much. It was only now that Chive Sasaki realized. It turned out that the people from number 60 High who had come to Sun Island this time had all been carefully selected. Why are you telling me this? Chive Sasaki asked at that moment. It's just that I think you're a reasonable person, Chive. Since Rongrong treats you as a friend, it's impossible for me to treat you as an outsider. Besides, we don't have many friends on Sun Island to begin with. Wang Ming's words sounded casual, but were in fact a psychological attack. Chive Sasaki was actually a very emotional person. When he heard this, he was so moved that his nose started to sting. So, what on earth is your relationship with Rongrong? She's my future family, Wang Ming said solemnly. Wang Ming said solemnly. She's also my forever little sister. So that's how it is. That's great. Hearing this, Chive Sasaki instantly heaved a sigh of relief. Wang Ming laughed. Don't tell me you think that the person Rongrong likes is me? That's right. After all, you know so much about Rongrong. Chive Sasaki didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I almost thought I misunderstood. I heard before that Rongrong likes a classmate with the surname Wang. In the end, it was you and your junior King Sang-duksen, so ha 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 ha. Wang Ming felt that Chive Sasaki's imagination was pretty good. So, do you need me to do anything? Chive Sasaki asked. You don't need to do anything extra. You just need to cooperate with us and make Rongrong's current fake identity a reality, Wang Ming said. Understood. Chive Sasaki nodded quickly. In the waiting room for the contestants, a lot of people had horrified expressions on their faces when Lotus Sun, disguised as Ryoko Kwamiya, suddenly appeared. And for some reason, the girls present in particular felt a chill down their spines. In an instant, the waiting room was dead silent. Lotus Sun imitated Ryoko's gait and walked step by step in Wang Ling's direction. This kind of black swan gait that didn't recognize anyone was exactly Ryoko Kwamiya's charm, and the essence of Lotus Sun's performance. If Wang Ling didn't know very well who the person in front of him was, he might also have been fooled by the girl's superb acting skills. Actually, he had sensed it a long time ago. Lotus Sun actually had a talent for acting. Furthermore, that face of hers would definitely be very popular in the entertainment industry, right? In addition, the girl had a personality that loved to be in the limelight. The entertainment industry seemed to be a training ground specially made for young girls. It was just that Wang Ling didn't know why. Recently, not only had Lotus Sun become a lot more low-key, she had also been thinking about him in every aspect. Classmate Ryoko? Why are you? The girls around Wang Ling were trembling. Lotus Sun imitated Ryoko Kwamiya's gait and walked over. She had that disdainful look in her eyes as she looked at them as if warning them. The few of you, please stay away from Junior King Sang-duksen. Because, he belongs to me, Ryoko Kwamiya. When Wang Ling heard this, he was so scared that he dropped his phone. Chapter 1527. The domineering declaration of sovereignty caused many of the girls here to be intimidated. Although Ryoko had not reached the Golden Core realm, she was hindered by the Ryoko family's amazing power on Sun Island. Even though these girls were unhappy with such domineering words, they didn't dare to say anything. Holding back their anger, they could only disperse. In the end, there was only one girl left in the circle around Wang Ling. One look and you could tell that he was a stubborn person. Jiogong, don't you think this is too overbearing? The girl in the kendo uniform spoke. She was barefoot, and her hands were bandaged for boxing. She looked like the type that was not to be trifled with. Was it the path of the combat department? Lotus Sun smiled inwardly, but didn't show it on her face. Because she was now Ryoko Kamiya, she had to imitate all the details perfectly. As for physical skills, Lotus Sun actually wasn't afraid. The girl in front of him looked strong. But even without the support of Mysterious Sea's power, Lotus Sun's body techniques weren't weak. Humph! Let's see what happens in the competition, Matsushita Galaxy, Lotus Sun said, imitating Kamiya Ryoko's tone. That humph seemed to have perfectly verified that this person was Ryoko Kamiya herself. Let's wait and see. Matsushita Galaxy was so angry that her chest was heaving up and down. She wanted to curse the flat-chested Ryoko Kamiya. However, thinking that they were in public, and that Holang Sang was still on the side, it was really ungentlemanly to curse like that. In fact, even Chike Sasaki in the monitoring room was surprised by this. Chive Sasaki. That's strange. I remember that Rong-chan should be a little bigger than Kamiya-san. Kamiya-san is a complete airport, but now Rong-chan, who is pretending to be Kamiya-san, is actually also. It's because of the spray I developed, said Wang Ming. Spray. Full name. So cute, you must be a blue child spray. Abbreviation. This is blue spray. Wang Ming said. After using it, you can temporarily slim and shrink your breasts. So that's how it is. Chike Sasaki nodded even though he didn't understand. He suddenly felt that this Wang Xiao heir in front of him was indeed a genius. He seemed to know everything. Looks like the disguise plan this time is really well prepared. Chive Sasaki sighed. However, he still vaguely felt that there was a small problem. At this time, there was one person in the room whose gaze had been fixed on Lotus Sun, who was disguised as Ryoko Kamiya. Looks like it won't be easy for Student Sparrow. Leek Sasaki said worriedly. Don't worry about that. Wang Ming chuckled. The moment I saw Rongrong disguise herself as classmate Ryoko, I already did everything. Kamiya Ryoko's entry and exit information, as well as her school registration information, have all been temporarily moved back. But classmate Sparrow is very dangerous now. She clearly saw it, but she deliberately didn't say it. I'm afraid there's another plan behind this. Don't worry, Chives, it's fine. She can't beat Rongrong. Isn't Rong-chan only at the Foundation Establishment realm? Even if I can unleash the combat power of a Golden Core stage. Yes, only Foundation Establishment. But Wang Ming smiled and kept him in suspense. You'll know later. The Sparrow thought that it was only dealing with a Foundation Establishment cultivator, whose combat power was comparable to a Golden Core cultivator. But the truth was, the woman she was facing was the strongest Foundation Establishment cultivator on Earth, who could even cut down a Tao god with one slash of her sword. The competition would be divided into groups by drawing lots. Based on the actual situation in the duel, the artificial intelligence system would give a comprehensive score. But because of Lotus Sun's sudden addition, there was an odd number of participants. In a situation where it was impossible to divide into groups of 2, of the 63 people, 62 would be divided into 2 groups for the competition. The winners would directly advance to the next round. Those who were eliminated would automatically enter the losers group. Finally, based on the system's overall score, the person with the highest score in the losers group would be resurrected once to fight the 63rd person. That was to say, the first round of the competition. It was a 31+1 competition, and 32 people would eventually advance to the second round. After 31 people advanced first, the person with the highest score would be chosen from the remaining 31 people in the losers group to fight the last person. As for who would fight first and who would fight last, this was decided by the system's automatic drawing of lots. In theory, the person who fought last had a natural advantage, because the competition would take place on the same day. While the first person in the losers group would be resurrected, it would still consume a certain amount of energy. That was to say, the only person who had drawn a late lot would have a certain advantage. When Wang Ling heard the competition format, he had a bad feeling, drawing lots. On the public screen in the waiting room, the system randomly divided the 63 participants into groups. Very quickly, a tree diagram of the duels was clearly laid out in front of everyone. And at the end of the tree diagram, everyone saw the name of the person who had drawn a late lot, Queen Lang. So it's like this? as expected of number 60 High's mascot. Queen Langsang's luck is too good. Many of the participants were envious. Although this was only the first round, the person who had drawn a late lot had an advantage. They would almost never be eliminated in the first round. There was an over 80% chance of winning. 80% chance of winning? At that moment, someone in the waiting room looked at the duel list and suddenly laughed. It was a blue-haired youngster. He was very short, but his aura was extraordinary. It was none other than Lan Lan Lu, the president of Rainbow Seven Suns Blue Face Association. The person he had drawn was none other than Lan Lan Lu. It was none other than Peacock Man, who had been following Leek Sasaki and Sparrow. Don't be fooled by Peacock Man's looks. But his strength wasn't ordinary. If the two of them fought, it would definitely end in a lose-lose situation. In that case, it would actually be very disadvantageous for them to enter the next round. Thus, Lan Lan Lu thought of an idea. He took the initiative to pull Peacock Man aside to discuss countermeasures. In the small corner, Peacock was a little surprised by Lan Lan Lu's idea. You mean you want to join forces with me? Yes. As a condition, I can let you pass the first round smoothly. But you have to let me earn enough points. If you're found to be rigging a match, you'll be eliminated. Peacock frowned. Who said you're rigging a match? We're just farming points. Lan Lan Lu said, later, just shoot me fireballs from a distance. I remember that dodging also counts for points. A master of body tracing. Peacock instantly understood, but he was still a little puzzled. But why do you want to do that? If the two of us fight to the death for the first round, it'll be very risky to enter the second round. Lan Lan Lu said. In that case, why don't we put on a show and you advance smoothly? And I can deal with that mascot, which isn't that risky. Peacock was blank. He hadn't expected the president of Blue Youth Club to choose this route in order to advance smoothly. But since he had made up his mind to do it, did this mean that Lan Lan Lu had already subconsciously labeled that Ho Langsang very weak? Although Ho Langsang was indeed a mascot in number 60 high school. But Peacock still felt that he might not be as weak as he thought. Don't worry, Peacock. I heard that Ho Langsang didn't rest well last night, and his aura is very weak today. I'm confident that I can beat him. At that moment, Lan Lan Lu smiled confidently. As long as you help me, it'll be fine. And this way, both of us will be able to preserve enough strength for the next round, won't we? Peacock thought for a moment. Finally, he nodded. In any case, this wasn't too bad for him. After all, he could guarantee that he would enter the next round. It was just that Lan Lan Lu had chosen this roundabout way to enter the next round. He still didn't understand. It was obvious that he had made this decision because he was confident that he could beat Ho Langsang. But what if he lost? Although the stadium wasn't big, the competition would be finished today. 2 stadiums, 2 fields, and an artificial intelligence referee ball suspended in the air to monitor and evaluate the competition from all angles, including the overall system score. It was the referee ball that gave the final score. At the same time, images of the duel would also be projected into the waiting room at the same time. So far, Wang Ling had yet to fight against a foreign student. Cultivators from different countries had very different teaching styles. So many of them had their own characteristics, and were even ingenious in combat. For example, the cultivators on Sun Island would often implant some ideas from the ACG industry into their spells during their education from a young age. They could turn something they saw in cartoons into real spells. This was also an eye-opener for Wang Ling. For example, on the public screen in the waiting room, the two sides were fighting fiercely. Wang Ling couldn't help but feel like he was watching an anime. That kind of fast, shadowy punches, the ripples, and all kinds of gorgeous and familiar fighting skills. Wang Ling felt like he had seen them all before. In the first round of the competition, student Matsushita Galaxy, who had challenged Lotus Sun earlier, wasn't in the same group as her, but the boy who had fought her had been beaten very badly. Because as soon as the match started, Matsushita Galaxy had entered three-tailed mode. She had actually tied her hair into a ponytail to increase her battle strength. In fact, this was a method of stimulating the acupuncture points on the scalp. If you tied a ponytail tightly enough, The tightly bound hair roots would have the same effect as golden needles piercing acupuncture points. It would speed up the blood flow in the body, thus making spirit energy flow faster than before. But to cultivate this technique, you had to train your scalp strictly from a young age. Because tying a ponytail was actually very damaging to the scalp. If your scalp wasn't firm enough, you would often go bald after training. It's not over yet. Get up. Matsushita Galaxy grabbed the male student's collar. His stance was filled with power, causing others to feel fear in their hearts. She was still angry at Lotus Sun's attitude toward her earlier. She was just a young miss. What was the big deal? What right did she have to say that Ho Lang Sang was hers? Wang Ling didn't understand this behavior, but Wang Ming and Chive Sasaki in the surveillance room understood very well. This was a war between women. An angry girl was often very scary. In order to ensure the safety of the boy's life. In the end, Matsushita Galaxy's match was forcibly stopped. On the other side, Lotus Sun's match was relatively smooth. Looking at the girl who had been sent flying like a scarecrow, Lotus Sun had wanted to step forward and help her up. But she suddenly remembered that the person she was playing was Ryoko Q. If it had been classmate Q, she probably wouldn't have directly walked over to help her up. She was trying to figure out what Ryoko was thinking. After thinking about it, she cautiously stepped forward and finally held out her hand to the girl. I'm not here to help you up. I'm just passing by. In the waiting room, Wang Ling couldn't help clapping his hands lightly. This acting was way too realistic. The 31st group's competition lasted for about 10 hours. Everything went as Lan Lan Lu had expected. Through his cooperation with Peacock and repeated evasion points, Lan Lan Lu's overall score became first in the losers group. When the words Lan Lan Lu versus Queen Lang Lang appeared on the public screen, Wang Ling realized that it was time for him to appear on stage. Lang Sang, come on. You have an 80% chance of winning. Don't let us down. You can do it, Lang San. Defeat this blue hair. Because the hair dye animation can't be broadcasted. So you have to defeat him. President. For the sake of our Blue Face Club, you have to hold on. Cheers rang out incessantly in the arena. Some cheered for Wang Ling, especially the Blue Face Club members who were cheering for Lan Lan Lu. Because his body was covered in Dao talismans, this was the first time Wang Ling felt at ease. He finally didn't have to worry about accidentally blowing someone's head off in a one-on-one fight. But the truth was that Wang Ling hadn't completely relaxed. After all, the incomplete Dao talismans on him might explode at any moment and give off smoke like firecrackers. He glanced lazily at Lan Lan Lu in front of him, and felt that the other party's aura was pitifully weak. But seeing Lan Lan Lu's confident look, Wang Ling couldn't say anything to discourage him. This was the last match in the first round. Wang Ling and Lan Lan Lu stood in the arena. The blue-haired man in front of him was smiling at him. Lang San's luck is really good. You actually drew a delayed lot. But unfortunately, your opponent is me, so you're bound to lose this match. Wang Ling shrugged and put his hands in his trouser pockets, not paying any attention to Lan Lan Lu's nonsense. The blue-haired man continued to smile. Look at how calm you look and how you put your hands in your trouser pockets. But you're actually so nervous that your palms are sweating, aren't they? Actually, whether you win or lose, I think it's already a great deal of courage for you to participate in the competition. If a foreign student like you takes the top spot in our country's university rankings, wouldn't that be too embarrassing? Wang Ling continued to be silent. Lan Lan Lu's endless chatter didn't provoke Wang Ling. Wang Ling had said it a long time ago. Overconfidence was stupidity. But people like Lan Lan Lu were also narrow-minded because of the limitations of their realms. Perhaps in other people's eyes, Lan Lan Lu was a very strong young genius at the Golden Core stage. But in Wang Ling's view, this Lan Lan Lu in front of him was essentially a mortal. As a mortal, of course you couldn't expect him to understand things beyond his own strength. What was the saying? Don't be fooled by how happy you are now. Wang Ling and your list. In fact, Wang Ling himself didn't have any desire to win. If it wasn't for the plan to draw out Peng Shiren, get the prize money, and kill 3 birds with 1 stone with crispy noodles, he wouldn't have participated in this competition at all. Lang San, are you ready? At that moment, the blue-haired man looked at Wang Ling with a kind smile. In Lan Lan Lu's eyes, this was just a game to bully noobs. Since it was a game to bully noobs, it could even be called an entertainment competition, so there was no need to be so nervous. After what looked like a polite inquiry, what greeted Wang Ling next was Lan Lan Lu's hair lotus. This was a body technique with an extremely high degree of difficulty. The main point was to dash forward quickly, circle behind the enemy, pick him up, and use his amazing jumping ability to bring him up into the air. Then he would use his rapidly lengthening hair to wrap around the enemy. In the end, he would form a high-speed spiral of death in the air as he smashed into the ground. This was Lan Lan Lu's most proficient move in all of his body techniques. In his opinion, it was more than enough to deal with Wang Ling. This number 60 high's mascot definitely wouldn't be able to take the spinning impact in the air and pass out. He was extremely fast. In almost the blink of an eye, he had already circled behind Wang Ling. Huh. Lan Lan Lu roared and locked Wang Ling's shoulder with a strongman lock, trying to use his jumping ability to lift Wang Ling off the ground. That was right. The most important thing about the hair lotus was that it had to lift the opponent off the ground. But now, Lan Lan Lu realized that he was facing some technical difficulties. He couldn't lift Wang Ling at all. F***K. Lan Lan Lu's face turned red, and at the same time he couldn't help swearing in his heart. This Wang Ling looked so weak that he couldn't even stand a gust of wind. So thin. How could he be so heavy? Many people in the waiting room also cried out in surprise. How can this be? Classmate Lan Lan Lu can't lift Ho Lang Seng at all. The hair lotus failed before it was even activated? I told you that Ho Lang Seng isn't ordinary. He must have seen through this move early on, so he used Thousand Caddy Fall. No. Even if it's Thousand Caddy Fall, Ho Lang Seng is only at the foundation establishment stage. How can Lan Lan Lu not lift him? This was a very strange scene. Everyone looked at the scene in front of them with bewildered expressions on their faces. At the same time, Lan Lan Lu himself was at a loss. He couldn't lift Wang Ling. This was something he hadn't expected. He thought about how many people in the waiting room were staring at him. His movements now had to be exceptionally awkward. Lan Lan Lu instantly felt his face burn. In the end, he could only give up on his hair lotus move and use Wang Ling's unshakable body as a stepping stone. He abruptly kicked Wang Ling in the back and jumped up in a cool posture to hide his embarrassment. Unfortunately, what Lan Lan Lu didn't expect was, in the next second, Wang Ling's backlash had already begun. Kacha. The right foot that Lan Lan Lu had kicked just now was fractured on the spot. Wang Ling rejoiced. Fortunately, Wang Ming had added a lot of talisman seals on him. Otherwise, given the strength of that kick just now, this Lan Lan Lu's lower body would probably have been crushed like shit. After landing, Lan Lan Lu realized that his right foot was fractured, and he felt extremely aggrieved. The main point was that he was still holding back and didn't directly cry out. This was the last match between him and Wang Ling. With so many eyes watching in the waiting room, how could he dare cry out in pain? Ho Lang Seng, you forced me to do this. Lan Lan Lu took a deep breath. His chest rose and fell as he was a little angry. In Wang Ling's eyes, this was more like a kind of helpless rage. Because he had lost the ability to fight in one leg, Lan Lan Lu had to find a new way to attack as soon as possible. Then, under everyone's stupefied gazes, Lan Lan Lu suddenly did a handstand and roared. Activate. Super transformation form. In the next moment, he used his hands instead of his feet to charge at Wang Ling. Using his right foot, which was in the air, he twisted his ankle continuously in the air and began to condense a high-density spirit power ball. This kind of spirit power ball was supposed to be made by rubbing it with his hands. But because he was using his hands instead of his feet, Lan Lan Lu had no choice but to use this method. As a cultivator with an outstanding wind spirit root, he had a unique spirit root. Even in this situation, he could actually use the attribute of his spirit root to think of using his ankle instead of his wrist to rotate quickly and rub out a spirit power ball with tremendous lethality and destructive power. Wang Ling was secretly astonished by this kind of battle thinking. However, Lan Lan Lu was really too slow. Wang Ling concentrated and dodged sideways, avoiding Lan Lan Lu's attack. It wasn't because he was afraid of pain. It was mainly because he was afraid that the backlash would cripple Lan Lan Lu's other foot. Just now Lan Lan Lu had only used his right foot to kick Wang Ling, and even under the protection of Wang Ling's multiple layers of seals, his foot had still been fractured. And if this psionic powerball were to hit him, Lan Lan Lu would probably have to spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. In the end, this was just the first round of the 9 paths and the internal group competition. Wang Ling really didn't think it was necessary to block the rest of his life. But the moment Wang Ling dodged it, he could also feel traces of the incomplete Dao Talisman seal breaking on his body. Wisps of smoke began to rise from Wang Ling's body. Even though Wang Ling hadn't done anything, some of the talismans had broken. This was... At that moment, Lan Lan Lu stared at the smoking Wang Ling with an incredulous expression. Second gear? This is impossible. Impossible. He was practically roaring, his face red from the intense rolling of his qi and blood. This teenager in front of him. He wasn't as weak as he had imagined. This teenager was like a very complicated math problem. Now Lan Lan Lu finally realized. This problem was a little beyond his scope. Wang Ling? Question mark. He hadn't done anything. What the hell was second gear? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.